Cars that defy gravity. People who teleport out of thin air. Animals frozen in time. And footage so bizarre that even scientists cannot fully explain it. Are we living in a simulated world? These are some of the strangest glitches in the Matrix ever recorded on camera. Surveillance footage from a busy intersection in Jingtai, Hebei Province, China, captured something that should not be possible. A car is driving normally down the road when suddenly, the rear of the vehicle lifts straight up into the air. The front stays on the ground while the back hovers like an invisible hand is pulling it skyward. Then the car comes crashing down like a rag doll. And this was not a one-time event. Another video filmed from an apartment building shows the same phenomenon. One car gets tossed into the air, and then the car behind it follows. It looks exactly like a UFO is abducting them. Now, the first video was eventually debunked. A street sweeper had snagged a thick cable that was lying across the road. As it pulled forward, the cable went taut and caught the undercarriages of passing cars. The camera angle made the cable invisible. But here's the problem. The second video, filmed from a completely different angle, has no visible cable, no street sweeper, and no logical explanation. So which one is it? Coincidence or a crack in the code? Let me know your theory in the comments. In a Phoenix Suns basketball game, something happened that has been viewed millions of times because it looks impossible. The game is going normally. Then, in one single frame, every single player on the Suns starts running at the exact same millisecond. Same stride, same foot, same body angle. Even the referee starts moving at the same time. Scientists who studied this clip point to something called mirror neurons. These are brain cells that fire when athletes train together for thousands of hours, creating subconscious synchronization. But to the naked eye, it looks like someone hit a button on a video game controller, and all 5 characters executed the same animation. Where are you watching this video from? Have you ever experienced such a perfect, bizarre coincidence in your life? Share your story below. A dashcam video from Russia shows one of the most unsettling moments ever recorded. A truck driver is cruising down the road when suddenly, he jerks the wheel hard to the right. At first, you cannot tell why. Then, out of absolutely nowhere, a woman materializes in the road. She does not run into frame. She does not walk out from behind anything. She simply appears. Stephen Hawking and many other physicists supported the multiverse theory, which suggests there are infinite parallel universes existing alongside our own. Some theorists believe what we are watching here is a person who accidentally slipped from one universe into another. Skeptics point out that lifted trucks can have blind spots up to 20 feet in front of the bumper, which could hide a pedestrian until the last possible second. But the way she appears is so sudden, so seamless, that even the most rational viewers cannot help but feel a chill. A TikTok video went viral after capturing something that looks completely impossible. A woman is filming her Christmas tree when an ornament falls from a branch. As it drops toward the floor, it simply disappears in midair. No bounce, no sound, no trace. She and her family immediately searched the entire room, under the tree, behind the furniture, inside the tree stand, everywhere. Nothing. The ornament was gone. Some viewers claimed it must have rolled into a hidden spot. Others suggested selective attention caused her to miss it. But a growing number of people believe this is a real example of the disappearing object phenomenon, where matter slips briefly into another dimension before returning, or sometimes never returning at all. Tap the like button to let us know this content is making a difference. And if you're watching on your phone, be sure to press the hype button right below. A TikTok creator named Leandro C. Magic posted a clip that has racked up over 51,000 likes and hundreds of comments. In the video, a beautiful butterfly is clearly visible in the reflection of a mirror. Its wings flap, it moves, it is undeniably there. But when the camera pans from the mirror to the actual room, the butterfly is gone. There is nothing in the physical space. Mirrors are supposed to reflect what exists in front of them. So how does a butterfly exist only inside the reflection? Some viewers believe this is a rendering error, like a video game forgetting to load an asset in the main world but still loading it in the reflection map. A TikTok video by an account called yikes.bikes shows something genuinely unsettling. Two dogs that look completely identical are standing in a yard. They are facing the exact same direction. Their bodies are angled in the exact same way, and they are not moving at all for minutes. Dog trainers explain that hunting breeds called pointers have an instinct to freeze when they detect prey or a scent. If two genetically identical sibling dogs detect the same scent at the same time, they freeze in identical poses. But the comment section was filled with people pointing out that this looks exactly like what happens in video games when a developer accidentally duplicates a non-player character. Two copies of the same asset stuck in the same animation loop. A video posted by the account elkukui.tv has stumped viewers and physicists alike. A small child is on one side of a closed baby gate. In a single frame, the child is on the other side. The gate never opens. The child never climbs over. There is no cut in the video, no visible edit, and the camera was completely still. The most popular explanation involves variable frame rate technology. Many home security cameras drop their frame rate to save storage, then ramp it back up when motion is detected. If a child happened to move during one of those frame drops, the camera would show them on one side and then the other, with nothing in between. But forensic analysts who studied the clip found no evidence of frame manipulation. The mystery remains. British YouTuber Alfie Days runs a popular channel where he investigates supposedly haunted locations. In one of his most viewed videos, he visits an abandoned prison rumored to be one of the most paranormal active sites in the country. He goes in skeptical. He says he does not believe in ghosts and he is hoping to prove the whole thing is nonsense. But then his camera captures something he cannot explain. A sign on the wall reads, "Enter at your own risk." Alfie points it out clearly. Then, a moment later, he pans back to the same spot and the words are gone. The sign is blank. He moves closer. Still, nothing. The text has simply vanished from reality. Some people suggested the night vision technology in his camera could not display the printed text. But later in the same video, the exact same camera clearly captures printed text on several posters hanging on the wall just a few feet away. So why did this one specific sign vanish? Optical illusion, technical glitch, or something far stranger? This footage was sent in by a hotel employee in Western Texas. He was watching the security monitors during a slow shift when he noticed something deeply wrong. A man standing in the lobby was completely motionless, not breathing, not shifting his weight, not even blinking. He was frozen like a statue. At first, the employee thought the camera had frozen, but other security feeds in the same building showed people walking, doors opening, and cars passing outside. Only this one man was stuck in time. He stood there for what felt like an eternity before the footage cuts out. Was this just a guy zoning out at the front desk? Or was this a non-player character in our simulation momentarily forgetting its scripted animation? In August 2013, a security camera pointed at one of Mexico's most famous volcanoes captured something that looks like science fiction. A massive fleet of glowing orbs emerged from inside the crater. These were not random sparks or debris. They moved with apparent purpose, flying in formation before disappearing into the sky. Mexico has become a global hotspot for these kinds of sightings, particularly around the Popocatépetl volcano. Some scientists explain it as ball lightning, which is common in the electrically charged environment of an active volcano. But many researchers point out that the orbs in this footage seem to move with intelligence. The leading alternative theory is that these objects are emerging from deep inside our planet, possibly from a hidden civilization that we have never been told about. Connected to the volcanic orb sightings is the ancient legend of Agartha, a massive secret world said to exist deep beneath the surface of the Earth. In recent years, dozens of videos have surfaced showing strange spheres gliding silently over oceans, lakes, and mountain ranges. Some witnesses describe hearing thunderous booms in the sky with no clouds and no aircraft in sight. These mysterious sounds, called skyquakes, have been reported across the globe for centuries. They have local names. In Japan, they are called uminari. In Belgium, they are known as mist puffers. In the eastern United States, they are called the Seneca guns. Scientists have proposed everything from meteors exploding in the upper atmosphere to gas releases from deep underground. But none of these explanations fully account for the patterns or the frequency of these events. A movie theater in Mexico became the site of one of the strangest pieces of footage ever uploaded to the internet. A couple was arguing in the lobby. Voices got louder. People started watching. Then, in front of dozens of witnesses, the woman's appearance began to shift. Her facial features changed. Her body posture transformed. According to multiple eyewitnesses, she suddenly took on a reptilian appearance for several seconds. Then, the man collapsed to the floor. The reptilian figure ran out of the theater and disappeared into the night. Someone nearby caught part of it on their phone. The footage is shaky and brief, but it has fueled the reptilian conspiracy theory for years. Could this be evidence that not everyone walking among us is actually human? This one is the moment I promised you at the start of the video. Beloved Today Show weatherman Roker is famous for his upbeat personality and constant joking. But during one live broadcast, something happened that no one has been able to fully explain. He was chatting normally with his co-hosts. Then he said the words, "Holy Spirit," and he froze. His eyes went blank. His face went still. He stopped responding. For nearly 20 seconds, he stared directly into the camera without moving. His co-host Anderson Cooper joked about it on air, which only made the clip creepier when viewers watched it back. Some people say it was a comedic deadpan, but others have pointed out the strange religious trigger, the absolute stillness, and the unnatural way his eyes seemed to go vacant. Was it a joke, or was something else going on inside his mind that day? Visitors at an aquarium were stunned when they noticed an entire tank where every single fish was completely motionless. Not just still, frozen, suspended in the water like decorations. They were not floating belly up. They were upright in natural positions, but completely unmoving for an extended period. A similar incident was filmed at a pet store. A man walking through the aisles noticed a tank where one or two fish twitched occasionally, but the rest stayed locked in place. The phenomenon could be explained by changes in water temperature or oxygen levels, causing fish to enter a state of torpor. But to the people standing in front of those tanks, it looked exactly like a video game where the rendering of background creatures had simply stopped working. During a live televised comedy performance in Germany, a popular comedian was caught on camera doing something her makeup team and producers desperately tried to edit out later. Her eyes shifted. The pupils appeared to elongate vertically, taking on what viewers described as a reptilian appearance. The shift lasted only a couple of seconds, but several people watching live recorded it on their phones before the broadcast version was modified. The original network later removed that segment from rebroadcasts, but the recordings survived online. Skeptics call it a trick of the studio lighting or a video compression artifact. Believers say it is one of the clearest pieces of evidence ever captured that shape-shifting beings are walking among us, hidden in plain sight. This security camera footage from Russia is one of the most shared glitch in the Matrix videos of all time. A man is walking past a property when a heavy truck drives by and clips a metal gate. The gate swings violently outward, heading straight for his head. He has no idea it is coming. Impact is inevitable. But then, in the split second before the gate hits him, a man appears next to him out of thin air. This second man looks exactly like him. Same height, same build, same clothing. The duplicate calmly grabs him, pulls him to safety, and pats him on the shoulder. He does not flinch when the gate slams past. He does not even look at it. It is like he already knew exactly when and where it would happen. Then he walks away. If you have ever watched the movie The Matrix, you know there is a scene where Neo experiences déjà vu when a glitch happens in the system. This footage looks like that scene playing out in real life. Time traveler, guardian angel, or a Matrix duplicate? I want to read your theories on this one. Comment below. Professional boxer James Kirkland was in the middle of a match when something completely impossible happened on live television. He started blocking punches that no one was throwing. His head jerked from invisible impacts. His body recoiled from blows that connected with thin air. The referee in the ring looked at him with absolute confusion. There was no second boxer in the frame at that moment. There was no one throwing punches. But Kirkland was clearly reacting to physical hits. Was this lag in the simulation, where the visual rendering of his opponent fell behind the physics engine? Was it the ghost of a deceased fighter haunting the ring? To this day, Kirkland himself has not offered an explanation for what happened. In April of 2020, during the height of the global pandemic, Pope Francis gave a blessing from a window overlooking St. Peter's Square. Because of lockdown restrictions, the square below was completely empty. He addressed the world through live broadcast. When the speech ended, he turned to walk away from the window, and then he simply vanished. Not walked out of frame, not stepped behind a curtain, he vanished. The window stayed empty, the broadcast continued. Multiple news networks captured the same disappearance from different feeds. The official explanation was a video loop or playout error during the broadcast. But many viewers believe what they actually saw was a hologram being switched off. Was the Pope ever really there that day? Or was the entire address a digital projection? In one of the simplest but most unsettling videos on this list, a man films a small section of sidewalk where it is clearly raining. Water is falling. The pavement is wet. You can see the drops hitting the ground. But when he tilts the camera up, there are no clouds. The sky is clear and blue. There are no buildings overhead, no trees, no source for the water. Other pedestrians walk by and look up too. They see what he sees. Nothing. The water is falling from absolutely nowhere. It is as if a single texture file of rain got loaded over one tiny square of reality and forgot to load the clouds that should be producing it. During a recent concert in Las Vegas, pop superstar Katy Perry was performing in front of thousands of fans when her right eye suddenly malfunctioned. Her eyelid drooped uncontrollably. For several seconds, it looked like her eye was rolling back into her head. Fans in the audience were horrified. Some thought she was having a medical emergency. Others compared her appearance to a possessed doll from a horror movie. Perry later addressed the moment with humor, joking that her broken doll eye was just a party trick and welcoming conspiracy theorists to her shows. Doctors point out that she has a mild medical condition that occasionally causes her eyelid to droop. But the clip continues to circulate online with millions of views from people who believe what they witnessed was something far stranger than a heavy stage makeup malfunction, a clone hardware failure, a simulation rendering error, or maybe just a tired performer at the end of a long residency. You be the judge. So there you have it, 20 pieces of footage that challenge everything we think we know about reality. Some of them have grounded scientific explanations: mirror neurons, variable frame rates, infrared light saturation, blind spots in lifted trucks, hidden cables that the camera could not see. But others remain genuinely unexplained. The teleporting woman in Russia, the Pope vanishing on multiple network feeds, the future savior who knew exactly when the gate would swing, the disappearing Christmas ornament that was never found. Here is what makes this topic so fascinating. Even when we have a logical explanation for each individual incident, the sheer number of these glitches keeps growing every year. Cameras are everywhere now. Phones in every pocket, security systems on every corner. And the more we record, the more we capture moments that should not be possible. Maybe we are seeing the limits of our recording technology. Or maybe, just maybe, we are seeing the limits of the simulation we are living inside. I want to know what you think. Which one of these 20 clips disturbed you the most? Which one do you think has no possible logical explanation? Drop a comment below and tell me which chapter shook you the hardest. I read every single comment and I love debating these mysteries with you. If you enjoyed this video, you are going to love my next one. Click the video on screen now to watch it next. Thanks for watching, and remember, just because you cannot explain something does not mean it is not real. Sometimes the strangest things hiding in our world are the ones happening right in front of our cameras. I'll see you in the next one. Some things should not exist. A car accident that happened 5 months ago, suddenly reappearing in real time. Subatomic particles flying backward through the Earth as if the laws of physics no longer apply. A strange cold spot in the sky that scientists believe could be a bruise left over from a collision between our universe and another one. Could all of these things be evidence that parallel universes are real? Jade Gonzalez was working at her family restaurant when something happened that she still cannot explain. Security footage shows her cutting a lemon in half, then slicing one of those halves a second time. She reaches for a bag, glances back, and freezes. The lemon is whole again. She checks it, confused, and has to cut it a second time. Skeptics online suggested she simply did not slice all the way through. But Jade insists the cut was complete, and viewers who turned their screen brightness all the way up reported seeing something even stranger. A brief yellow flash of light around the lemon at the exact moment it appeared to snap back together. One commenter wrote that with their screen at maximum brightness, they could see 2 clear halves, then a flash of white-yellow light, and then suddenly, the lemon was whole again. Simulation theorists call this a state persistence error. The environment failed to register that the object had been permanently changed. Did the lemon really fix itself, or was this just a camera illusion? Tell me what you think. In this CCTV clip, 2 men are walking down a dark street at night. They look almost identical. Same height, same dark clothing, both bald. The man in the back catches up to the man in front and taps him on the shoulder just as a car passes by. A split second later, a metal object swings out of nowhere right at head level. The man who got tapped jumps back just in time. If that warning had not come, the object would have hit him directly in the face. Here is what makes this footage so unsettling. The man who delivered the tap seemed to know exactly what was about to happen. He was completely calm. He did not stop to talk. He did not even turn his head. He tapped and walked away quickly as if he did not want his face to be seen. The most popular theory online is that the man who tapped him was a future version of the man who almost got hit, traveling back to save his own life. If someone saved you just seconds before disaster struck, would you believe it was the work of supernatural beings? Drop it in the comments. This photograph was taken at the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in Gold Bridge, British Columbia in 1941. At first glance, it looks like a normal historical photo. Black and white film, people in 1940s clothing, old cameras. Then you see him. One man stands out completely. He is wearing wraparound sunglasses, what looks like a printed graphic shirt, and he is holding a small portable camera that seems far too modern for the era. Skeptics have offered explanations. The sunglasses style did exist in the 1920s. The shirt was actually a wool sweater with a sports team emblem, possibly the Montreal Maroons. The camera has been identified as a Kodak folding pocket model from around 1938. All of these items technically existed, and yet he simply does not belong in that photo. His posture, his expression, the way he is dressed compared to everyone around him. He looks like a tourist from 2015 who got dropped into a 1941 ceremony by mistake. A truck driver in Mexico was driving cargo to Monterrey late at night. It was a routine trip until his supervisor checked the dashcam footage remotely and got chills. Sitting in the passenger seat next to the driver was a woman. Pale skin, outdated clothing. The supervisor, thinking the driver had picked up a hitchhiker, which was strictly against company rules, sent him a message asking what was going on with the passenger. The driver was confused. He thought his boss was joking. He kept driving, alone, just as he had been the entire trip. When he finally arrived at the destination, the supervisor showed him the footage. The driver went pale. He swore on everything he believed in that he had been alone in the cab the entire night. But the camera had recorded someone sitting beside him for hours. If you saw someone in your car that was never actually there, what would you do? Let me know your reaction in the comments. And by the way, where are you watching this video from? Here is where this gets serious. The universe is expanding faster than our equations say it should be, and modern science has no agreed upon explanation. This problem is called the Hubble tension. When astronomers measure the expansion rate using data from the early universe, they get a value of about 67 kilometers per second per megaparsec. When they measure it using nearby stars and supernovae, they get a value closer to 73. That difference of about 9% is enough to break our entire model of cosmology. To fix this, researchers from the University of New Mexico and UC Davis proposed something extraordinary. A complete mirror world. A hidden parallel universe made of mirror particles, exact copies of the particles in our universe, invisible to us except through gravity. They believe this hidden world might be distorting our measurements of expansion. It could even be the source of dark matter, the mysterious substance thought to make up most of the cosmos. This is not science fiction. This is a published paper. Real physicists are now considering that a parallel universe is the missing piece that makes the math work. In 2019, scientists released the first real image of a black hole captured by the Event Horizon Telescope. It looked like a glowing orange donut, and it broke the internet. Here's what most people do not realize. We were not actually seeing the black hole itself. Physics does not allow that. We were seeing superheated gas and bent light wrapping around the event horizon, the boundary beyond which nothing returns. But theoretical physicist Nikodem Poplawski has a stunning idea. He believes black holes are not endings. They are doorways. According to his torsion-based theory, when matter collapses into a black hole, it does not get crushed into a singularity. It gets funneled through and gives birth to an entirely new universe on the other side. If he is right, Every black hole in our cosmos contains a Big Bang for a separate reality. And our own universe might exist inside the black hole of some larger parent universe. That blurry orange ring may not be a hole at all. It may be a door. This is one of the most chilling cases on this list. On December 11, 2002, police in Surrey, England received multiple calls from drivers reporting a car with blazing headlights swerving violently off the highway near a major exit. Witnesses said the vehicle crashed into a ditch. When officers arrived, they found no fresh accident, no skid marks, no injured driver. But while searching the area, they discovered something covered in heavy vines just off the road. An old Vauxhall Astra, hidden by months of overgrowth. Inside was the body of Christopher Brian Chandler. He had been missing since July of that same year. Forensic analysis confirmed that the crash had occurred 5 months earlier. So what exactly did multiple drivers see and report on that cold December night? There was no other accident. There was no fresh wreckage. Some researchers believe this was a time slip, a moment where the original July crash bled through into the present and was witnessed by people driving by months later. The visuals, the sounds, the headlights, all replaying in real time, like a recording stuck on loop in the fabric of reality itself. In the late 1930s, a Soviet inventor named Semyon Kurlian discovered something strange. When he ran a high-voltage current through an object and photographed it, the resulting image showed a glowing outline surrounding it. Plants, leaves, apples, human fingers, every living thing seemed to have a luminous halo, almost like an electric aura. Skeptics say it is just moisture, ionized air, and corona discharge. A simple electrical effect. But many researchers and parapsychologists are convinced it is something deeper. They believe these images capture life energy, a field that exists between dimensions, something we cannot see with the naked eye, but which surrounds every living thing at all times. Some studies have even claimed that the aura changes shape and color depending on a person's mood, health, and emotional state. If that is true, what we are looking at is not just static electricity. It is the visible signature of a parallel layer of reality reacting in real time. Do you think Kirlian photography captures energy or just electricity? In 2020, astronomers using Australia's ASCAP radio telescope discovered something that made no sense. Massive, perfectly circular rings in space, visible only at radio wavelengths. They are called odd radio circles, or orcs. Each one is roughly 1 million light-years across. That is 50 times the size of our entire Milky Way galaxy. They do not match any known galactic structure. They are not supernova remnants. They are not stars. They are not anything we have a category for. Some scientists believe they are shock waves from massive cosmic collisions. Others think they are connected to active black holes. And then there are those who suggest something far more unsettling. That orcs may be evidence of a phenomenon outside our current understanding of physics. Possibly the visible boundary of something we are not supposed to see. A glitch in the rendering of the universe itself. This clip comes from a creator who said her daughter's boyfriend was on his way to a rescue training session when he spotted something impossible. A bird completely frozen in midair, hanging motionless above the road. The cameraman is not the only witness. Another driver actually pulls over and gets out of his car to take a picture. Two separate strangers in the middle of an ordinary day, both stopping in disbelief. Some viewers have suggested the bird must be tangled in fishing line or suspended by some thin wire. It is possible, but you cannot see anything in the footage. No string, no support, just a bird suspended in the sky, defying gravity. If you grew up watching Scooby-Doo, take a moment and picture Shaggy. Specifically, his neck. Most people remember a comically large, bouncing Adam's apple that would jump dramatically every time he ate or got scared. It was practically his signature feature. There is just one problem. According to the original animation cells, Shaggy never had a prominent Adam's apple in most versions of the show. One Reddit user posted about it years ago and was overwhelmed by responses from people who all clearly remembered the same thing. The big, exaggerated Adam's apple that would shake every time he gulped. Animators in a 2015 reboot did add one, possibly because so many people remembered it being there. So the question is, are we collectively misremembering? Or did Shaggy quietly lose a feature in some kind of reality shift? Do you remember Shaggy having a huge Adam's apple? Or is this another Mandela effect? A creator on social media posted a clip that went viral almost immediately. It shows a woman standing in a parking lot, completely motionless. Not just standing still, but frozen with her legs crossed, balanced in a position no one could comfortably hold for long. The couple recording the video is genuinely stunned. The footage runs for over a minute, and based on their reactions, she had been standing like that even before they started filming. Then, without warning, she just snaps out of it. She uncrosses her legs and walks away as if nothing happened. Was she lost in thought? Was she experiencing some kind of medical episode? Or did her consciousness briefly slip out of sync with our timeline before snapping back into place? In a remote valley in Norway, something has been happening for nearly 100 years. Strange glowing orbs appear in the sky, sometimes hovering for hours, sometimes shooting across the valley at incredible speeds. They have been documented since the 1930s, and despite serious scientific study, no one has ever fully explained them. The lights are called the Hessdalen lights. Researchers from multiple universities have set up permanent observation stations there. They have ruled out aircraft, weather phenomena, and basic optical illusions. Some current theories suggest the valley acts like a giant natural battery. One side contains heavy iron deposits, the other contains copper, and a sulfur-rich river runs between them. This setup may produce ionized gas clouds that glow in the air. Other researchers have proposed something far more exotic, that the lights may be visible openings of small wormholes, briefly connecting our world to somewhere else. Meet Brady Feigl, and meet Brady Feigl. They are not brothers. They are not cousins. They are not related in any way. They are two completely different men who share a level of similarity that should not be possible. Both are professional baseball pitchers. Both stand exactly 6 feet 4 inches tall. Both have red hair and red beards. Both wear nearly identical thick-framed glasses. Both underwent the same elbow surgery performed by the same specialist. And here's the part that makes statisticians uncomfortable. DNA testing showed both men are exactly 53% German in ancestry, despite sharing no common relatives. If we are living in a simulation, this is the kind of evidence simulation theorists love to point to. It looks like a copy and paste error. The same character model, used twice, with only minor changes to age and pitching hand. In August 1990, 2 hotel chefs were hiking in the Scottish Highlands near a village called Calvine. They looked up and saw something massive, silent, and diamond-shaped hovering in the sky. It was being shadowed by a Royal Air Force Harrier jet. They had a camera. They took 6 photographs. The images were so clear that experts later called them the best UFO photographs ever captured. Then something strange happened. The chefs sent the photos to a newspaper. Instead of publishing them, the paper handed them over to the British Ministry of Defense. The photographs disappeared for 32 years. In 2022, journalist David Clark finally tracked down a copy. It had been kept secretly by a former Royal Air Force press officer all those decades. A photography expert at Sheffield Hallam University analyzed the image in detail, and concluded there were no signs of editing or manipulation. It was real. The object in the photo, by the way, is estimated to be around 100 to 130 feet long. Whatever it was, no known aircraft from 1990 or any era since matches its design. Why do you think these photos were hidden for 32 years? This dashcam clip comes from Russia, and it has been replayed millions of times. A black car begins making a left turn through an intersection. As it enters the middle of the road, another car suddenly appears out of nowhere, cutting straight across the path. The two vehicles nearly collide. The strange part is that the second car is completely invisible in the footage until the very last moment. It does not approach, it does not appear in the distance, it just materializes in the middle of the intersection. Skeptics argue it is a blind spot caused by the camera car's pillar, combined with the vehicle in front. The other car was always there, just hidden by an unfortunate angle. Maybe that is true. Or maybe, for a brief moment, two timelines overlapped and one car briefly entered a road it should not have been on. Watch the background of this 1928 Charlie Chaplin film carefully. As the camera pans, a woman walks past holding something to her ear. She appears to be talking. Her gestures are exactly what you would expect from someone using a modern cell phone. The problem, of course, is that cell phones did not exist in 1928. A film researcher named George Clark brought this clip to global attention, and it has divided the internet ever since. The most reasonable explanation is that she was holding an early portable hearing aid. The Western Electric audiophone, manufactured starting in 1925, looks surprisingly similar to a modern handheld device. But she does not seem to be adjusting a hearing aid. She is talking, animatedly, to no one visible. So either this was an extremely early adopter of a clunky hearing aid having a one-sided conversation, or we are looking at a time traveler caught on film nearly 100 years ago. Fruit of the Loom is one of the most recognizable underwear brands in the world. It was founded in 1851 and has used a simple logo for most of its history. A bunch of fruit, an apple, some grapes, some leaves. Here's the strange part. Millions of people clearly remember the logo also featuring a brown cornucopia, a horn-shaped basket, sitting behind the fruit. In 2018, a Reddit user posted about this on the Mandela Effect forum, and the response was overwhelming. Thousands of people insisted they remembered the cornucopia. One user even sent a direct message to the official Fruit of the Loom Instagram account. The reply confirmed that the cornucopia has never been part of the logo. But the staff member added something unsettling. They said that even some of the company's own employees still believe the cornucopia used to exist. Be honest right now. Do you remember the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia too? Look at this photo and tell me how it is real. A residential building stands in the middle of a city, but three of its sides appear to have completely vanished. What you see is a paper-thin slice of an apartment block, like a stage prop with no depth. Either a parallel universe collided with ours at this exact location, or the simulation we live in failed to render the rest of the structure. There is actually a psychological term for this. Researchers call it a modal volume completion failure. When a building has a sharp triangular base, the brain expects symmetry and tries to fill in the unseen sides. When the angle is wrong, the brain gives up and shows you a flat plane. Whether you believe the science or the simulation theory, the visual effect is genuinely disturbing. Finally, the strangest entry on this list: emojis. Specifically, emojis that millions of people remember using, that according to every official record have never existed. The most famous example is the seahorse emoji. People remember it being orange, facing left, with a curled tail. They remember exactly where it was on the keyboard. The problem is, no major emoji set has ever included a seahorse. Even AI systems sometimes hallucinate it into existence when asked. It does not stop there. People remember a robber emoji wearing a striped shirt and a mask carrying a bag. They remember a hiker with a walking stick. They remember a slice of pumpkin pie with whipped cream, a toaster, a swordfish. None of these have ever existed in any official emoji set. So either we are all collectively misremembering small visual details with stunning accuracy and consistency, or these emojis once existed in a slightly different version of our reality, a version that has since been overwritten. Tell me in the comments which case got under your skin the most. Did you remember the cornucopia in the Fruit of the Loom logo? Have you ever experienced something you cannot explain? A moment that felt like a glitch? Share your story below. If this video pulled you in, the next one in this series goes even deeper. I cover the cases that were too disturbing to include here, including footage that several creators have refused to discuss publicly. You can watch that next.
Do you believe in reincarnation? What do you really think happens the moment a person takes their final breath? And are the scientific explanations we have been told about the afterlife actually as logical as they seem? Our first case begins with a 7-year-old boy named Cade, who started telling his parents something no child should know. He claimed that in a past life, he died inside the North Tower of the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. He described hearing the screams. He described the fire and the smoke spreading at a frightening speed. He talked about the smell of burning metal, a detail no parent had ever shared with him. He described people running through hallways, trying to find emergency exits that no longer worked. His parents swore they had never discussed the attacks with him. Yet the boy specifically described the floors, the failed elevators, and the windows that people opened in desperation. In a session with a psychologist, he choked up and said, "The people around me were screaming. We wanted to get out, but fire was everywhere. Some people opened windows and I knew I had to jump." What makes this case so haunting is that the temperatures inside the upper floors of the North Tower reached over 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, and the fireproofing on the core columns had been stripped away on impact. Researchers found that every detail Cade described matched the actual conditions on the floors where victims were trapped, conditions documented in the official 9/11 Commission report. Please comment, "I believe in reincarnation," if you find this story meaningful. Now this next one will tug at your heart. Christian Haupt was a baseball prodigy at age 2, but what he told his mother was even more remarkable than his swing. He said, "I used to play baseball, and I died when I was very sick." He told her his body had stopped working. He talked about specific players on the New York Yankees and the rivalry with the Boston Red Sox. When his mother showed him a photograph of the 1927 Yankees, he pointed directly at Lou Gehrig and said, "That is me." Lou Gehrig, the legendary first baseman known as the Iron Horse, died in 1941 from amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, the disease that now bears his name. The disease had quite literally caused his body to stop working. Christian correctly identified Gehrig's parents, Christina and Heinrich, from another old photograph. He described the hotels Gehrig lived in during his playing days, and when he was finally taken to visit Lou Gehrig's grave, the little boy burst into tears and said he was happy to be home again. Have you ever seen a toddler with a natural talent or passion that seems to come from another lifetime? Tell me about it below. When Ryland O'Banion was just 2 years old, she woke up screaming about fire, smoke, and a collision. She told her mother that it was so hot inside the plane it was hard to breathe. Her mother, Cindy, began writing down everything Ryland said. The details led her to Pan Am Flight 759, which crashed in Kenner, Louisiana in July 1982 after being caught in a sudden microburst just after takeoff. Among the victims on the ground was an 11-year-old girl named Jennifer Schultz, killed in her own carport. Researcher James Matlock evaluated 32 distinct statements Rylan had made. 25 of them were correct, substantially correct, or plausible. But the most disturbing detail came from Jennifer Schultz's autopsy report, a document that had never been released publicly. Rylan's description of how the girl died perfectly matched the medical findings, including the fact that her trachea was clear of soot, suggesting she died on impact before the fire could reach her. Researchers concluded there was no logical explanation. Rylan had no connection to airplanes, no connection to Louisiana, and no possible way to access a private medical document. Where are you from? Did you have a recurring nightmare or phobia as a kid that felt a little too real? Share your story in the comments. As a young child, Robin Hull spoke a strange language to his mother that she could not understand. As he grew older, he became more fluent in this mysterious tongue. A family friend interested in reincarnation visited and recognized it as something Asian. She brought back a professor of Asian languages. The professor listened carefully and identified the dialect as one common in northern Tibet. When the professor asked 5-year-old Robin where he learned these words, the boy said, "At school." His mother protested that he had never been to school, and Robin replied, "When I went to school last time." He described a school in the mountains, built of stone, where the teachers were men wearing skirts with cloaks wrapped around their waists. The professor traveled to the Kunlun Mountains of northern Tibet. He later wrote to Robin's parents, confirming he had found the exact monastery the boy described, with the rocky and arid terrain, the stone construction, and the Lama monks dressed precisely as Robin had explained. Tap the like button to let us know this content is making a difference. And if you're watching on your phone, be sure to press the hype button right below. Teresa spoke her first word at just 3 months old. The word was arupa, an ancient Sanskrit term meaning freed from matter. By 13 months, she was speaking coherently, but oddly, she struggled with French, her family's native language. By age 2, while playing store with her mother, she casually said the price of an item was 3 rupees. Months later, she began talking about Bapu, the affectionate nickname those closest to Mahatma Gandhi used for him. Her parents knew almost nothing about Gandhi's life. When her mother once wore a beret with a badge, Teresa told her she looked like a soldier. Her mother later discovered that Gandhi had spent years in South Africa during the Boer War, where similar hats were worn by Highland soldiers. At age 4, Teresa saw a portrait of the famous yogi Paramahansa Yogananda and told her parents she knew him from when he was with Bapu. Historical records confirm that Yogananda had indeed spent time with Gandhi around 1935. Teresa naturally sat in yoga positions, refused to eat meat, and loved a specific dish of rice and chopped almonds, one of Gandhi's favorite foods. In a remote village in Sri Lanka, a boy named Wijarat Hami was born with severely deformed arms. His left arm was shrunken and malformed, his fingers uneven. Hami rarely spoke about his condition, but occasionally he would say something that disturbed the villagers deeply. He said, "I did something very bad. I argued with a man in the village and I killed him." Every time he spoke these words, his body would tremble, his voice would choke, and his face would turn pale. Researchers from the University of Virginia, including Dr. Ian Stevenson, investigated the case. They discovered that Hami's deformities corresponded exactly to the body of a man in a nearby village who had been hanged for murder. The arm Hami used to commit the killing matched the deformed arm Hami was now born with. This is what researchers call a karmic birthmark, a physical signature carried from one life into the next, as if the trauma of the previous death had left its imprint on the very flesh of the new body. Dorothy Louise Eady, later known as Seti, was a British woman who claimed to be the reincarnation of an ancient Egyptian priestess named Bentreshet. After falling down a staircase at age 3, she began saying she wanted to go home to Egypt. She dreamed of towering columns and temples covered in inscriptions. When she finally reached Egypt as an adult, she adapted instantly to the culture, language, and rituals. She could decipher hieroglyphs without formal training. But the most astonishing moment came when she first entered the Temple of Abydos. She knelt down and kissed the floor. She recognized every chamber, every stone. Archaeologists testing her knowledge asked her to identify locations of features that had not yet been excavated. She pointed to spots where a hidden garden once stood, where secret entrances were buried, and the excavations later proved her right every single time. Until her death in 1981, leading Egyptologists consulted her as one of the foremost experts on ancient Abydos. David Moquin was an ordinary 48-year-old man with no interest in the paranormal until he nearly died. Hospitalized with severe double pneumonia, he fell into a coma. When he miraculously recovered, he came back with vivid memories of being burned alive inside a crashed fighter plane. He recalled the date of his death in November 1944. He remembered the names of his squadron commander, his flight commander, and even his parents. His daughter searched military records for any plane crash matching that date. She found exactly one: a P-51 Mustang piloted by 27-year-old Captain Earl Robert Fryer, who was forced into an emergency landing in a field in the Netherlands. The plane caught fire violently, and Fryer died in the wreckage. Every detail David provided matched the historical record, including the names of Fryer's parents and teammates. And here is the chilling part. David Moquin was born in December 1944, just 1 month after Captain Fryer burned to death in that Dutch field. Do you believe surviving a near-death experience can unlock memories from a past life? Sound off in the comments. In the Etawah district of India, a young woman named Sumitra Singh fell into a deep coma. When she woke up, she was no longer Sumitra. She displayed the personality, the memories, and the mannerisms of a completely different woman named Shiva Tripathi, a young woman who had been murdered by being thrown from a train just 2 months earlier. Sumitra could recognize Shiva's family members on sight. She knew the names of Shiva's children. She identified Shiva's friends in photographs. She even knew the location of a small watch box hidden inside the Tripathi family home, a detail no outsider could have known. Researchers documented 19 specific statements that matched private information never published in any newspaper. Sumitra's behavior also shifted dramatically. She began writing letters with a level of education far beyond what she previously possessed. Researchers call this phenomenon replacement reincarnation, where one soul appears to leave the body and another takes its place. This is one of the most thoroughly documented reincarnation cases in modern history. James Leininger was just 2 years old when he began having violent night terrors, screaming about a plane on fire, a little man who could not get out. He told his parents he had been a Navy pilot. He said his plane was a Corsair and that it took off from a ship called the Natoma. When his father showed him a model airplane and pointed to a shape underneath the cockpit, calling it a bomb, James corrected him. He said, "That is not a bomb. That is a drop tank." His father, Bruce, a skeptical Christian, was determined to disprove the story. Instead, he kept finding confirmation. The USS Natoma Bay was a real American escort carrier. James also said he had a friend named Jack Larson. Jack Larson turned out to be a real pilot who was still alive. Then Bruce found the final piece. A pilot named James Houston Jr. had died on March 3, 1945, when his plane crashed in flames near Iwo Jima. Little James had been signing his drawings James 3. James Houston Jr. was the second James in his family. James Leininger was the third. When James met Houston's elderly sister, Anne, He revealed private family secrets that only the dead pilot could have known. If you want to learn more, look for and read the book Soul Survivor. Robert Snow was the captain of homicide for the Indianapolis Police Department. He was an extreme skeptic, and he agreed to undergo past life regression purely as a challenge. What happened during that session shook him to his core. Snow recovered 28 specific memories of a life he had never lived. He saw himself as a portrait painter who walked with a cane. He remembered painting a portrait of a hunchbacked woman in a studio with a large skylight. Using his investigative skills, Snow searched art history archives for over a year. Then, while visiting a gallery in New Orleans, he came face to face with the exact portrait from his vision, the painting of the hunchbacked woman. The artist was James Carroll Beckwith, who died in 1917. Snow tracked down Beckwith's 15,000 pages of unpublished private diaries. Of his 28 specific memories, 26 were confirmed by these private records that no living person had ever read. Tommy Hibbert was a 4-year-old boy in California who could not stop talking about airplanes. When his mother took him to an airport, the boy climbed inside a small aircraft and began identifying every control, pressing pedals correctly and telling the actual pilot how to fly the plane. 3 months later, Tommy found a book about World War II aircraft and immediately pointed at a Japanese Zero. He said he had flown one of those. And then he said something that made his mother's blood run cold. He said he had died because he crashed his plane into a ship. Tommy was describing a kamikaze pilot. But Tommy's story did not stop there. He revealed an even older life. When his mother needed to sew a button, Tommy took the needle and thread himself and sewed it on with professional precision. He said, "Oh, on my ship, we used to do this all the time." He described sleeping below deck, listening to the creaking of wood and ropes, surrounded by tall masts. He had been a sailor on an old wooden ship, generations before he was the kamikaze. From a young age, Karen Frazier suffered from recurring nightmares. She dreamed of derailed trains, collapsing bridges, and people in clothing from a forgotten era. Her research led her to the 1910 Wellington Railway disaster in Washington state, where a massive avalanche killed 96 people. It remains the deadliest avalanche in American history. Karen discovered a victim named Nellie Sharp and immediately felt a powerful connection. Nellie had been a journalist and a musician. Karen Frazier was also a journalist and a musician. When Karen found a photograph of Nellie, she was stunned. The same facial structure, the same eyes. When Karen finally stood at the site of the disaster, she was overwhelmed by a sense of familiarity she could not explain. She knew, somehow, that her dreams were not dreams at all. They were memories of a life that ended on a snowy night more than a century ago. Boriska Kipriyanovich, born in 1996 in Russia, claimed to be the reincarnation of a being who had once lived on Mars. As a young child, he spoke about an advanced civilization on the Red Planet, with spacecraft powered by magnetic fields. He described a catastrophic nuclear war that destroyed life on the Martian surface, a war in which he died. Boriska said the survivors retreated to underground cities, which is why he claimed our exploration robots have never found life on the surface. While many dismissed his claims, scientists who tested him acknowledged that his knowledge of planetary movements was extraordinary for a child his age. He spoke about astronomical concepts that he could not have learned in any school. Do you believe souls are strictly bound to Earth? Or could we reincarnate from entirely different planets? Let me know your theory. Ryan Hammonds was just 5 years old when he looked up at his mother and said, "I used to be someone else. I want to go to Hollywood." He talked about working with the famous actress Rita Hayworth. One day, while looking through a book about old Hollywood, Ryan pointed at a photograph of an extra and shouted, "That is me, Mom! I am that man!" The man in the photograph was Marty Martin, a Hollywood agent who had died in 1964, more than 30 years before Ryan was born. Dr. Jim Tucker verified more than 50 individual statements Ryan made about Marty Martin's life. Almost every single one was confirmed through historical research. Ryan knew Martin had been married 4 times. He knew Martin had grown up in New York. But the most heartbreaking moment came when Ryan's mother gently told him that Marty Martin had died long ago. Ryan started crying. With tears running down his face, he said, "I did not know I had died." The pattern across all of these stories is impossible to ignore. The median age of death in the previous life is 28 years old. About 70% of cases involve violent or unnatural deaths. The median time between lives is just 16 months. What makes these cases so powerful is the convergence of evidence. Children describing private autopsy reports, toddlers identifying military aircraft, birthmarks matching fatal wounds, languages spoken without ever being taught. The traditional materialist explanation tells us that consciousness is simply a byproduct of brain activity, and when the brain dies, the self disappears forever. But these cases suggest something far more profound. They suggest that consciousness may be fundamental to the universe itself, surviving the death of the body and returning again and again to live new lives and reconnect with souls it has loved before. Dr. Jim Tucker has proposed that quantum mechanics may hold the key to understanding how memories transfer. In this view, consciousness is the foundation, and the body is simply a temporary vessel. Which of these 15 cases shocked you the most? Have you or someone you know ever experienced a memory you cannot explain? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one. If this video moved you, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Thank you for watching.
30 years ago today, KLAS aired a live interview with an anonymous man
who made claims so outrageous that most people laughed him off the screen. That man turned out to be Bob Lazar. And what he said that night has held the United States government in a chokehold ever since. Lazar does not fit the mold of a conventional conspiracy theorist, nor can he be reduced to a science fiction storyteller or a casual observer embellishing a fleeting sighting. Rather, he presents himself as a physicist who asserts that he was recruited by the United States government to participate in the reverse engineering of spacecraft of non-terrestrial origin. Now, after 4 years of complete silence, he is back. And what he has brought with him may finally change everything. So, what does his reappearance in 2026 actually mean for the rest of us? Let us get into it. On the night of May 15, 1989, a pivotal moment unfolded when investigative journalist George Knapp conducted a live television interview with an anonymous figure concealed in shadow, whose voice was altered, identity obscured, and presence deliberately anonymized. During this broadcast, he told the world that the United States government had 9 flying discs of extraterrestrial origin. That silhouette was Bob Lazar. Before going public, Lazar had reportedly brought acquaintances to the Nevada desert on multiple Wednesday nights, directing their attention toward the skies near the classified S4 facility, where they observed test flights of craft he claimed to have worked on directly. Once these actions came to the attention of authorities, the situation escalated rapidly, marked by alleged threats, an incident involving gunfire directed at his vehicle, and intimidation targeting his family. Simultaneously, official records related to his employment and academic history began to vanish from accessible databases, effectively erasing his documented background. That decision to go public cost him enormously, but it also planted a seed that has been growing for over 3 decades. What exactly did Bob Lazar see inside S4? S4 is not Area 51. Area 51, also known as Groom Lake, is a well-known installation in the Nevada desert. S4 is approximately 15 miles south of it, built directly into the side of a mountain near Papoose Dry Lake. The hangar doors were designed to match the texture and color of the surrounding desert terrain, making the facility essentially invisible from the air and from satellite surveillance. Getting there was its own exercise in secrecy. Employees would gather at an EG&G facility at McCarran International Airport in Las Vegas. They would board unmarked Janet flights to Groom Lake. From there, they were transferred to buses with blacked-out windows, sometimes no windows at all, and driven to S4. The entire system was designed so that no single person could map the full layout of the operation. When Lazar arrived for his first day of work, he was handed a briefing document. Inside the mountain, there were 9 crafts. Each one was different in design. Each one appeared to have been manufactured using processes that had no equivalent in human engineering. The surfaces looked less like assembled metal and more like molded ceramic, as if the craft had been grown rather than built. Lazar's focus was on one craft in particular, a vehicle he nicknamed the Sport model. It was a sleek metallic disc. The interior was divided into 3 levels. The lower level contained 3 gravity emitters used for propulsion. The middle level housed the reactor and the crew compartment. The crew compartment itself was strikingly small, designed for occupants approximately 3 to 4 feet tall. There were no conventional controls, no levers, no switches, no instrument panels in any form recognizable to a human engineer. The interface appeared to be gesture-based, or possibly thought-responsive. In 1989, Bob Lazar told the world that the craft at S4 was powered by an antimatter reactor that used a fuel source he identified as Element 115. He described it as a heavy, stable, orange-colored substance that did not occur naturally on Earth. He said the government had approximately 500 pounds of it, almost certainly sourced from somewhere beyond our solar system. At the time, Element 115 did not exist in any scientific record. It had not been synthesized and theorized in any mainstream publication. Lazar was describing something that, as far as the scientific community was concerned, simply did not exist.
Then, in 2003, a team of Russian and American scientists at the Flare-Off Laboratory of Nuclear Reactions successfully created it. They accelerated ions of calcium 48 to roughly 10% of the speed of light and bombarded them with americium-243. The fusion of those nuclei produced 4 atoms of the new element. It was later officially named moscovium. The element Lazar described in 1989 was synthesized in a laboratory 14 years later. Now, the scientific community is quick to point out that the known isotopes of moscovium are extremely unstable, decaying in fractions of a second. Lazar's claims require a stable isotope, something that current laboratory conditions have not yet produced. But this is where the concept of the island of stability becomes relevant. Nuclear theory has long predicted that certain super-heavy elements, at specific combinations of protons and neutrons known as magic numbers, could achieve relative stability. Lazar claimed the government supply of element 115 was a stable isotope, one that fell within this theorized island. Research published in 2024 and 2026 has begun exploring whether isotopes in the range of 291 to 300 could exhibit the kind of nuclear mass density that would interact with the quantum vacuum in ways that generate gravitational harmonics. In other words, the physics community is now, slowly and cautiously, beginning to examine the theoretical framework that Lazar described from memory in 1989. He also described the propulsion mechanism itself in terms that were, at the time, considered pure science fiction. The craft did not move through space in the conventional sense. Instead, the 3 gravity amplifiers at the base of the craft distorted the space-time metric around the vehicle. In one configuration, a single amplifier would create a point of gravity in front of the craft, pulling it forward in a controlled fall. In a more advanced configuration, all 3 amplifiers would work together to fold space between 2 points,
allowing for what Lazar described as interstellar travel without violating the speed of light. This is why the craft produced no sonic boom. This is why witnesses reported instantaneous acceleration. The craft was not accelerating through space. It was moving space around itself. The physics he described in 1989 aligns remarkably well with theoretical models that mainstream science has only recently begun to take seriously. One of the most persistent attacks on Lazar's credibility has been the question of his academic background. He claimed to hold degrees from MIT and Caltech. When journalists went looking for records, they found nothing. The institutions had no record of him. Lazar's supporters point out that this is precisely what you would expect if someone had been deliberately erased from official records. His employment history at Los Alamos National Laboratory was similarly scrubbed. The lab initially denied he had ever worked there. Then a 1982 newspaper article surfaced. The Los Alamos Monitor, on June 27, 1982, published a front-page story about Lazar. The article identified him explicitly as a physicist at the Los Alamos Maison Physics facility, where he was said to be working with one of the largest particle accelerators in the world. The article was about a side project of his, a Honda Civic he had modified with a custom-built jet engine made of stainless steel and titanium, capable of generating 1,600 pounds of thrust and reaching speeds over 200 miles per hour. That article did not disappear. It is still there, and it places Bob Lazar inside Los Alamos as a physicist, in print, years before his 1989 disclosure. A later search of a 1982 LANL phone directory found his name listed with a contractor designation. Skeptics use this to argue he was merely a low-level contractor, not a scientist. But the newspaper article, written by a journalist who interviewed him on site, calls him a physicist. The phone directory and the newspaper cannot both be the full picture. What is harder to explain away is the pattern. Employment records gone. Academic records gone. A phone directory entry that survived only because it was a physical document. A newspaper article that survived only because it was archived in print. That is not the profile of a man who never existed in the system. That is the profile of a man who was removed from it.
Lazar agreed to undergo polygraph testing as part of George Knapp's original investigation. The results were complicated, and both sides of the debate have used them to support their positions. The first examiner, Ron Slay, found the results inconclusive. Lazar appeared truthful on one test and deceptive on a second. Slay recommended bringing in a second examiner. Terry Tavernetti, a former Los Angeles police officer running a corporate security operation, conducted 4 separate tests. He concluded that there was no attempt to deceive. He sent the charts to a third independent reviewer, who agreed the results appeared truthful. A fourth reviewer disagreed, suggesting Lazar might be relating information he had learned from someone else rather than from direct experience. The polygraphers ultimately declined to issue a final statement on truthfulness, citing the need for more specific testing. Tavernetti explained the inconsistency that is worth taking seriously. He argued that the extreme fear instilled in S4 workers had permanently altered Lazar's baseline physiological responses. When you are held at gunpoint by your own supervisor and told that you and everyone you love will suffer consequences if you speak, that kind of psychological conditioning does not simply disappear. It rewires how your body responds to stress. Tavernetti's assessment was direct. He said he left the sessions believing there was credibility to what Lazar had to say. Lazar himself has never wavered. In his own words, he has stated that what he saw at S4 is absolute proof of contact with another intelligence. He has said there is no way human engineering could have produced those systems, those power supplies, those craft. And he has said he had an extremely small part in it, but that small part was enough to convince him completely. After decades of interviews, documentaries, and public appearances, Bob Lazar simply stopped.
No farewell statement, no explanation, no final interview to wrap things up. In 2018, filmmaker Jeremy Corbell released a documentary titled Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers. The film introduced Lazar's story to an entirely new generation of viewers who had never heard of S4, Element 115, or the sport model. Shortly after, Lazar appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, one of the most listened-to programs in the world. The episode broke records. Millions of people who had never given UFOs a second thought suddenly found themselves unable to stop thinking about what Lazar had described. The timing could not have been more electric. The United States government had just acknowledged the existence of its Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Declassified footage of Navy pilots encountering unidentified aerial phenomena was circulating on every major news platform. The cultural conversation around UAPs had shifted from fringe speculation to mainstream inquiry almost overnight. And right at the peak of all of it, Bob Lazar disappeared. The online speculation was immediate and intense. Some people believed the government had finally silenced him, pointing to a 2017 FBI raid on his business, United Nuclear, as evidence that federal pressure had been building for years. The raid, which Lazar described as targeting his supply of hydrogen, was never fully explained to his satisfaction. Others theorized that he had been brought back into a classified program, essentially rehired to continue work he had started decades earlier. A smaller but vocal group suggested something far more dramatic, that he had been taken against his will. The more grounded explanation, supported by those who know him personally, is simpler and in some ways more telling. Lazar has said repeatedly throughout his public life that he hates the attention. He came forward in 1989 not because he wanted a platform, but because he needed protection. Once the media cycle reached a level of intensity that felt unmanageable, he did what he had always wanted to do. He walked away from it. George Knapp, the journalist who first broke the story and has maintained a relationship with Lazar for over 3 decades, has characterized the disappearance as a strategic withdrawal rather than a... Lazar retreated to his private life, his business, and his personal relationships. But the world he retreated from did not stay still. While Lazar was silent, something remarkable was happening in Washington.
In 2023, a man named David Grush sat before the United States Congress and said things that would have been unthinkable in any official setting just a few years earlier. Grush was not a fringe figure. He was a former U.S. intelligence official who had led Defense Department efforts to analyze reported UAP sightings. He had held high-level security clearances. He was not someone who could be easily dismissed as a crank or an attention seeker. What he told Congress was this: the United States government has a secret, multi-decade program dedicated to recovering and reverse engineering crashed craft of non-human origin. The program operates outside of congressional oversight through the use of waived, unacknowledged special access programs, meaning that elected representatives, the people theoretically in charge of government accountability, had been deliberately kept in the dark. When Representative Jared Moskowitz pressed Grush on the source of funding for these programs, Grush stated that the question was above congressional oversight. He was telling a sitting member of Congress that there were government programs that Congress itself was not permitted to know about. Grush also testified that colleagues of his had recovered what he described as non-human biologics from crash sites. He had interviewed these colleagues personally. He had reviewed their accounts. He declined to provide specific details in the open hearing, citing the sensitivity of the information, but he made clear that he was not speaking hypothetically. Now consider what Bob Lazar said in 1989. He described 9 crafts of non-human origin being stored and studied at a secret facility. He described a program operating in total secrecy, compartmentalized so thoroughly that even participants could not see the full picture. He described a craft designed for occupants that were not human in size or proportion. Grush, more than 30 years later, described a multi-decade recovery and reverse engineering program. Non-human biologics recovered from crash sites,
and a system of secrecy so complete that Congress itself was excluded. These two men never worked together. Their testimonies are separated by more than 3 decades, and yet the structural details of what they describe are nearly identical. Former Navy Commander David Fravor added another layer. In 2004, Fravor and 3 fellow pilots encountered a craft above the Pacific Ocean that he described as tic-tac shaped. It had no visible rotors, no wings, no exhaust. As Fravor descended to investigate, the object began ascending toward his aircraft. Before any contact was made, it vanished at supersonic speed and reappeared approximately 60 miles away within seconds. Fravor was unambiguous in his assessment. What he saw defied every known principle of human aerospace engineering. The flight characteristics he described, instantaneous acceleration, silent hovering, transmedium travel, are precisely the characteristics that Lazar attributed to the craft he worked on at S4. Ryan Graves, another former Navy pilot, testified that UAP encounters among military aviators were far more common than the public had been led to believe. He argued that the stigma attached to reporting such encounters had suppressed a significant body of evidence, and that both military and commercial pilots needed a safer environment in which to come forward. The picture that emerged from these congressional hearings was not the picture of a government that had nothing to hide. It was the picture of a government that had been hiding something for a very long time, and the walls around that secret were beginning to crack. Bob Lazar did not return to the public eye with a press conference or a social media post. His reappearance was quieter than that, and in many ways, more significant. The centerpiece of his return is a 2026 documentary by Jeremy Corbell titled Sleeping Dog. The film held an exclusive screening at the Mission Theater in Portland and has been described by those involved as the most consequential piece of investigative work on the Lazar case since the original 1989 broadcast. Corbell has stated that Sleeping Dog contains previously suppressed documents and a bombshell interview with an undisclosed whistleblower whose testimony directly corroborates Lazar's account of S4. The film also draws on the congressional testimony of figures like David Grush and David Fravor to place Lazar's original claims within a broader institutional context that simply did not exist when he first came forward. The timing of this reappearance is not accidental. The 2023 and 2024 congressional hearings created something that had never existed before in the history of UAP research. They created a degree of institutional legitimacy. When sitting members of Congress are asking intelligence officials about non-human biologics and secret reverse engineering programs, the conversation has moved beyond the realm where a man like Lazar can be dismissed as a fantasist. Lazar and those around him appear to have recognized that the environment has changed. The risks of speaking are still real, but the risks of continued silence, in a moment when the disclosure movement has reached the halls of Congress, may now be greater. There is also the matter of theoretical physics catching up to what Lazar described. Research published in 2024 and 2026 has revisited his claims about element 115 and gravity amplification through the lens of quantum vacuum frequency. Analysts working with what is called the gravity B construct have found that Lazar's 1989 predictions about the quantum vacuum property of the Earth at its surface were independently confirmed by separate research in 2006, 17 years after he first described them. He was not just telling a story. He was describing physics that the scientific community would not catch up to for nearly 2 decades. One lesser discussed aspect of Lazar's testimony is his claim of a vast underground tunnel network spanning multiple countries. He described tunnels beneath mountains, bases, oceans, and lakes, allegedly used to conceal advanced weapons, conduct restricted experiments, and enable rapid transport across continents beyond known technology. If true, this suggests a parallel infrastructure operating outside public oversight, with S4 as just one part of a larger system. Other researchers and whistleblowers have reported similar underground facilities at sites like Skinwalker Ranch and military installations, along with accounts of craft capable of moving between air and water. While unverified, these recurring themes appear across independent testimonies. Lazar's broader claims, from advanced propulsion to recovered non-human craft, remain unproven, though interest in such topics has grown due to recent UAP discussions and congressional attention. Despite decades of debate, no conclusive evidence has confirmed his story. The central question today is not just whether his claims are extraordinary, but whether they can be tested and verified. Until then, they remain part of an ongoing and unresolved controversy. If this video made you think differently about what you thought you knew, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to know where you stand. Do you believe Bob Lazar? And more importantly, do you think the full truth is finally coming? And if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming journeys. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.
Hippos are one of the most dangerous animals in the world. They kill about 500 people a year, and now an American woman is one of those statistics.
An African safari offers an extraordinary experience.
I know.
Yet, such proximity to untamed wildlife carries undeniable risks, and situations can escalate in an instant. Let's dive into 20 of the most intense safari encounters ever caught on camera. On a sunny day in South Africa, a group of men set out on what seemed like a routine safari. The situation quickly escalated when a territorial male lion began focusing on them. That sense of safety vanished when one lion abruptly changed direction and started advancing towards them. The group attempted to retreat and create space, but the lion continued its pursuit. As the risk increased, they fired warning shots while moving as quickly as possible to deter the charge. After a prolonged standoff, the lion finally stopped and chose not to continue. Have you ever been in a stressful situation like this?
Ja, wel hierdie mense, die olifante verbysteek, want dit sal nie slim wees.
What was meant to be an enjoyable trip to Kruger National Park in South Africa took a frightening encounter, a dangerous elephant. The footage captures a blue car at the front of a convoy attempting to pass an enormous elephant standing squarely in the road, blocking any forward movement and creating a tense standoff. As the situation escalates, the vehicles begin reversing in an effort to retreat from the threat. The clip cuts off abruptly at this critical moment, leaving the outcome uncertain and the full extent of the incident unknown. From the very beginning of this alarming encounter, an enormous hippo is seen charging directly toward a group of tourists. Reacting instantly, the driver accelerates in an attempt to outrun the animal and protect the passengers, but the hippo's surprising speed quickly tests the effort. Just as abruptly as it began, the charge ends, with the hippo veering off and retreating in the opposite direction. The encounter serves as a stark reminder of how powerful and unpredictable wildlife can be, leaving a lasting impression on everyone involved. Do you think the driver made the right decision by speeding away instead of stopping when the hippo charged? Let's discuss in the comments section. In South Africa, a group of lions surrounded a small passenger car and began investigating it with the kind of focused, methodical attention that lions reserve for things they are genuinely interested in. The lionesses, who do the majority of the hunting for the pride, led the examination. They bit the exterior, they scratched the surface, they pulled the hubcap clean off the wheel. Most safari vehicles are elevated trucks designed to be large and imposing enough that predators treat them as neutral terrain rather than potential prey. A blue sedan is not that. When the driver of the sedan finally pressed the accelerator, the lions gave chase. However, as the car sped up, they wisely got away. In a heart-stopping safari moment, a rhino charged aggressively at a vehicle carrying tourists, treating it as an intrusion into its territory. As the massive animal lowered its head and surged forward to strike with its horn, tension inside the truck escalated. Rhinos, especially dominant males, are highly territorial and can react violently when threatened. This encounter involved a black rhino, known to be more unpredictable than white rhinos. With poor eyesight, it relies on smell and hearing, often misinterpreting movement as danger. As the guide tried to steer away, the rhino struck the vehicle with force, jolting everyone inside. It eventually retreated, leaving the group shaken but unharmed. During a tense encounter on the Nile River in Uganda's Murchison Falls National Park, a group of tourists faced a life-threatening situation when a crocodile charged directly toward their boat. The group tried to paddle away, but the crocodile closed the distance rapidly. As it neared the boat, the guide reacted decisively, striking it with a paddle to fend it off. Although the crocodile briefly retreated, it returned several times, each approach more aggressive, heightening fear as passengers clung tightly to the vessel. Remaining composed, the guide continued to repel the attacks until enough distance was gained to escape. A mother and her young child were interacting with a camel at a park. The camel was licking the child's head, which the child found hilarious and the mother found endearing. Then the camel turned its attention to the mother. Without any visible warning sign, the animal lunged forward and bit her. The woman was not seriously injured, but the bite was painful and the shock was significant. What this moment illustrates is something that wildlife professionals call the unpredictability threshold. An animal that appears calm, even playful, can shift into defensive or resource-aggressive behavior in a fraction of a second. Do not roll down your window to hand-feed an ostrich. One woman on safari made that choice with good intentions, but the ostriches noticed the food and their behavior shifted. They lunged at her hands, pecked at her arms and chest, and forced their large heads through the window with surprising strength and persistence. She pulled back, scrambling to close the window while the birds showed no sign of stopping. Ostriches are the largest birds on Earth, with beaks strong enough to cause bruises and cuts. They aren't naturally aggressive, but food changes everything. The woman escaped without serious injury, but the moment shows how quickly a safari interaction can turn dangerous when a small decision goes wrong. Do you think feeding wild animals from a vehicle should always be avoided, even if it seems harmless at first? Share your thoughts. A family at a safari park was enjoying a close encounter with a camel, the kind of experience for great holiday photos. Then the camel noticed the young girl's long braids. With curiosity, it stretched its neck forward, opened its mouth, and began to chew. Not aggressively or out of hunger, but simply because the braids were there and worth investigating. The girl's expression shifted from shock to confusion to helpless laughter, the kind that comes when something is so absurd it overrides fear. Her family burst out laughing as the camel continued, completely unfazed. She eventually pulled free. The camel looked mildly disappointed. The family walked away with a story they'll tell forever. At Kruger National Park in South Africa, tourists were following a lion pride when the hunt began. A male lion had locked onto a Cape buffalo and launched himself onto its back, sinking his claws and teeth into the animal's hide. What the tourists did not anticipate was becoming part of the hunt. The buffalo, spinning wildly in an attempt to throw the lion off its back, became disoriented. Instinctively bidding for anything that might break the predator's grip, it charged directly into a safari truck. The massive horn connected with the rear of the vehicle, shattering the brake lights with a sound that witnesses described as a loud, jarring crunch. The impact startled the male lion. His grip loosened. The buffalo broke free and disappeared into the bush. Jennifer Coleman, one of the tourists present, described the moment as going from completely calm to absolute chaos in under 3 seconds. This incident introduced researchers and guides to a concept they had not fully documented before. Would you stay inside the vehicle and keep filming if a buffalo charged your safari truck during a lion hunt? Let me know your opinion, and be sure to explore even more fascinating things located in the top right corner. At West Midlands Safari Park in England, a giraffe named Strider was known around the park for his gentle nature. Tourists loved him. On this particular day, a family had left some treats inside their vehicle, and Strider, being Strider, leaned his enormous head through the open window to investigate.
Oh, God!
A passenger, startled by the sudden presence of a giraffe head inside the car, reached for the window control and began rolling it up. The mechanism caught on Strider's neck. The giraffe pulled back instinctively. The glass shattered explosively, sending shards across the interior of the vehicle and across Strider's face. Strider was unharmed. The family was shaken, but physically fine. The video went viral almost immediately. In northern Botswana, a tourist sat very still while a leopard climbed into the vehicle beside him. The animal had been walking closer and closer, and by the time the man realized how close it actually was, there was no safe move to make. Any sudden action, any attempt to pull away or push the animal back could have triggered an attack response faster than any human reflex could manage. The leopard sniffed him. It scratched his leg. It investigated him the way a large, powerful predator investigates something it has not decided what to do with yet. The guide turned on the engine. The sound startled the leopard, and it left. Do you think staying completely still was the safest choice when the leopard entered the vehicle? Let me know your opinion. A group of tourists in South Africa parked their car directly beside a group of resting lions, close enough to get great footage. Close enough, as it turned out, for one of the lions to become curious about the vehicle itself. The lion approached the door and began manipulating the handle with its teeth. The tourists inside watched in disbelief as the door opened. I didn't know they could do that. What this moment reveals is something that safari guides in high-traffic parks have been warning about for years. Habituated lions, animals that have grown up around vehicles and lost their natural fear of humans, have begun to interact with cars the way a curious animal interacts with any unfamiliar object. In Tanzania's Serengeti National Park, a tourist noticed something alarming beside their vehicle. A lioness, curled up and resting, right next to the door. Before anyone could process that, a male lion emerged from the grass. He had noticed his female was near the vehicle and was not pleased about it. He began circling, low and deliberate, assessing the situation. The driver made a decision. He revved the engine hard, a sudden burst of noise that startled both lions and sent them moving toward the other vehicle in the convoy. That guide then did the same thing, and both predators retreated into the tall grass. No attack, no injuries. Just two guides who understood that in a confrontation with a lion, the worst thing you can do is nothing. Do you think revving the engine was the right move to prevent a potential lion attack? Drop your thoughts below. In 2023, in Botswana's Okavango Delta, as Bill and Linda Clipp from Key West, Florida, approached a watering hole, a hippo emerged from the water and charged. A full, committed, "this is my territory" charge from an animal that can weigh up to 10,000 pounds and move at 22 miles per hour. The hippo reached the vehicle, clamped its jaws onto the car door handle, and crushed it. A hippo's jaw can open 150 degrees and exert enough pressure to split wood and metal. The door was rendered useless. They drove away. The hippo pursued them for a short distance before returning to the water. The vehicle was battered. The couple was shaken but unharmed. and the footage they captured is some of the most visceral wildlife video you will ever see. At Pilanesberg National Park, a bull elephant in a state of heightened aggression approached a safari truck carrying up to 22 passengers. The elephant used its trunk to lift the front of the vehicle several feet off the ground, then let it drop. Then did it again. Inside the truck, tourists were on the floor, with one woman heard praying aloud as the elephant approached. The safari guide did not flee. He revved the engine, slammed the doors, and shouted, asserting dominance over the animal rather than triggering its pursuit instinct by running. Eventually, the elephant backed down, and no injuries were reported. At Woburn Safari Park in England, a family found themselves trapped inside their car as a 6-foot black bear climbed onto the hood and began gnawing at the vehicle. The encounter lasted around 10 minutes. The bear circled the car, roared, and showed no intention of leaving. Help was slow to arrive. The mother, her sister, and a 6-year-old child sat inside, watching a bear dismantle the exterior of their vehicle with its teeth. No one was physically harmed, but the psychological impact of sitting inside a car while a predator tries to get in is not something that fades quickly. This moment is a reminder that the barrier between tourist and animal is thinner than we like to believe. At Taman Safari Park in Indonesia, a monkey reached through the bars of its enclosure and snatched a tourist's smartphone before anyone could react. Zoo staff tried everything. A long stick to lure the animal. Food as a bargaining chip. Nothing worked. The monkey held the phone in one hand and reached for the food with the other, refusing to give up either. The standoff continued until the phone was eventually split into 2 pieces. The back cover in the monkey's hand, the screen somewhere in the bushes. What makes this moment so fascinating is not just the theft, it is the negotiation. These animals have learned, through repeated interaction with tourists, that human belongings have value. A group of tourists leans out of their safari vehicle, cameras ready, hoping to capture a leopard resting nearby. Then, chaos. The leopard launches from its hiding spot with a speed that the human eye can barely track. It goes directly to the guide sitting on the edge of the vehicle. Just when it seems all hope is lost, another ranger arrives. A shot is fired. The leopard releases its grip. This incident is a sobering reminder that even the professionals, the people who do this every single day, are not immune to the raw unpredictability of a wild predator. Leopards are the most elusive of the big cats, but when they decide to act, they act faster than any human can respond. A man parked quietly on the side of the road at a safari park, enjoying the scenery, completely at ease. What he does not know is that a monkey in a nearby tree has already identified him as a target. In a split second, the monkey drops into the car, grabs something from the passenger seat bag, and is gone before the man can even process what happened. What follows is one of the most undignified chases you will ever see. A grown man sprinting through trees after a monkey that is clearly faster, smarter, and significantly more entertained by the situation than he is. The monkey eventually climbs a tall tree, settles onto a branch, and looks down at the man below with what can only be described as satisfaction. The man walks away empty-handed. The monkey wins, no contest. And those were 20 incredible safari moments caught on camera, each one a powerful reminder of just how raw, unpredictable, and intense the natural world can be. What appears to be a peaceful landscape can shift into chaos in seconds, and animals that seem calm can react without warning, proving that even experienced guides are never completely beyond risk. That is what makes safaris both thrilling and dangerous, because these are not staged environments, but real animals acting on instinct in real time. Whether it is a lion opening a car door, a rhino charging blindly, or a crocodile refusing to retreat, each moment reinforces a simple truth. Respect the wild, or it will remind you why it demands respect. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more incredible moments from around the world. And let us know in the comments which moment shocked you the most.
What if superpowers were not just the stuff of comic books and blockbuster movies? Today, we are counting down 20 unbelievable people who appear to be living with real superpowers. Let us get into it. In a parking lot outside a mall in Mexico, a husband and wife were walking together when they saw a strange, bright circle near the far side of the lot. The man wanted to know what it was, so he walked closer. As soon as he stepped into the light, the circle looked like it folded into itself, and he disappeared. Security workers searched the entire parking lot but could not find him anywhere. There were no footprints, no clues, and no place he seemed to have gone. People online said it was like a glitch in real life, while others thought it might have been a portal that opened to transport him to another location unknown to us. Back in 2007, Romanian intelligence agents launched a hunt for an individual rumored to be a time traveler. They claimed this mysterious figure possessed the ability to vanish instantly from any location. After searching for a long while, the agents got a message saying he was inside a small bookshop nearby. However, upon their immediate arrival at the shop, the individual dissolved into thin air right before their eyes. Witnesses on the scene were left in a state of shock, unable to comprehend the impossible event they had just observed. Since that strange encounter, the man has never been found or seen again. He may remain on a journey across the hidden dimensions of time. Do you believe this man was really traveling through time? Let me know your opinion. An ordinary couple attempted to record a basic shadow performance for the camera. By positioning their hands underneath a suspended light source, they projected their silhouettes onto a plain white canvas. As they separated their hands, a strange anomaly occurred, where his shadow vanished instantly, while her silhouette remained visible for several seconds before finally dissipating. She froze in place, clearly frightened, then moved away from the light. Upon inspection, there were no hidden mirrors, digital screens, or complex equipment behind the simple arrangement. It was just a man and his wife standing under a light, witnessing a shadow that defied the laws of physics by lingering long after she had moved. At a construction site, workers stood around as one of their teammates tried to do something unbelievable. He used no machines, no tools, and no help. He grabbed the edge of a 4-ton truck and slowly began lifting and pushing it sideways. The truck moved a little with each push. The moment was recorded on video, and people online began wondering how one person could have so much strength. 4 tons is not a weight most people would ever connect with the word human. Whether it was real strength or something else, it did not look normal at all. What is the maximum weight you can lift? Share it in the comments. In a place in China, an aged man positioned himself on a riverbank and announced his intention to sprint across the water. A group of onlookers assembled, fully expecting to witness him plunge into. To their utter amazement, he began to run, and his feet seemed to merely skim across the top of the water. He maintained a quick and consistent pace while his reflection followed along the surface below. After successfully stepping onto the far shore, the man gave a small bow and departed as if such a feat were a perfectly normal daily activity. Speculation began to circulate rapidly among those who saw it. People questioned whether the miracle was a result of perfect physical balance, deep spiritual faith, or a unique harmony with the natural world. A heated argument took an unexpected turn in an office in Malaysia. A frustrated employee started acting strangely while his coworker recorded. Then something unbelievable happened. The man waved his hand in anger, and the computer on his desk slid across the table by itself. A second gesture, and the door slammed shut without anyone touching it. It almost felt like his frustration had triggered something unseen, something that reacted before he even realized what was happening. Whether it was telekinesis, an extraordinary coincidence, or something else entirely, the footage left no answers. A man from Ukraine decided to make a video showing his special skills.
He went close to the woods, where dry leaves were spread all over the ground. After walking around for a little while, he started his act by moving his hands in different ways. Then the leaves began moving just the way he wanted them to. They went in every direction and swirled around exactly as he seemed to command. Some could not believe it and wondered how it could even happen. But the most surprising part was how exact the movements were. It did not look like random wind. The leaves followed his hand signs and changed direction when he wanted, almost as if they were listening to him. What do you think of this ability? Let me know your opinion. The legendary illusionist Imad possessed a unique talent for forcing audiences to doubt their own eyes. In a video, he gave a woman a glass of water and then drew a simple fish on a dollar bill. With a small smile, he rolled up the bill and dropped it into the glass. A few seconds later, the drawing seemed to become real. A real goldfish appeared, swimming inside the glass, while the woman gasped in shock. When the bill was pulled out, the fish drawing was gone. Whatever really happened, Imad made it seem like imagination had come to life that day. And the woman's reaction looked real, surprised, and completely unplanned, which is what makes this moment so hard to ignore. During a meeting in Argentina's parliament, Minister Sergio Tomas was seen sitting quietly at his desk. A water bottle was in front of him. Then, without any warning, the bottle tipped over and fell. But he had not touched it. The cameras recorded the whole thing, including the small smile that appeared on his face right after. Many people watching thought it was just a coincidence, but others believed his focus alone may have affected the real world during a live government meeting. The smile is what people keep talking about, because it did not look surprised. It looked like the smile of someone who knew exactly what had happened. Do you think he can control the water bottle with his mind? Share your thoughts. Within a Nepalese temple, several monks gathered in total unison. A vessel filled with motionless liquid rested before the head monk. Gradually, as he gestured over the container, the water started to wave and spiral in exact coordination with his movements. As soon as he finished, the liquid instantly went back to a flat and quiet state. The monks showed no intense emotion or joy following the event. They just remained present with the occurrence as if it were a routine event. However, every observer sensed a change in the atmosphere. It could have been their shared focus blending into a larger force. Alternatively, it might serve as evidence that human consciousness and the natural world possess a connection we are still unable to fully decode. A man in China named Yang Chen surprised many people online by doing something that seemed impossible for a human body. He held a tiny piece of parchment in his hand and became very quiet and focused. Then, without using a match or any heating tool, the paper suddenly caught fire and burned into ash right in his palm. It looked like the fire came from energy inside his own body. Many compared him to others said to harness unseen powers. Some people said science or physics might explain what happened. Other people believed it was something very strange that modern science does not fully understand yet. Have you ever performed a magic trick with a piece of paper? Share your story. Inside a neighborhood fitness center in Mexico, gym-goers froze in place as Xavier Mortimer approached the weight bench. He did not manually load the equipment. Instead, he gestured with his hands to make heavy plates hover through the air and secure themselves onto the barbell. Observers eventually learned that Xavier is a professional illusionist from France who specializes in creating surreal moments within everyday environments. Despite realizing it was a trick, seeing the iron discs move as if controlled by his thoughts left every witness doubting the boundary between what is real and what is staged. In Essex, England, a worker named Scott Lodge was finishing his day while standing on top of his van and putting away his tools. Suddenly, the parked van started rolling downhill toward a weak fence near a dangerous drop. Without stopping to think, Scott jumped down and ran in front of the moving van. Using all his strength, he pushed against it and somehow stopped it from rolling any farther. A van is a heavy machine, and it was moving downhill with force behind it. But Scott Lodge stopped it with his own body. Maybe it was adrenaline, quick thinking, or something even harder to explain. His fast reaction saved the van and may have saved his life. Do you think he actually has superpowers? Let's discuss in the comments section, and don't forget to check out more interesting content in the top right corner of your screen. This girl was trying to find something that had rolled under a car. Most people would kneel and reach underneath it, but she chose a completely different way by lifting the car with one hand. Then she moved to the side and gave it a push. The car slid over like it weighed almost nothing. After that, she calmly picked up her spray, the thing she had been looking for, as if nothing strange had happened. To her, it seemed normal. But to everyone watching, it was the kind of moment that makes you question what people are really able to do. A couple was walking through the city when they started arguing. But what happened next was something no one in that area was prepared for. The wife kicked him, and the moment her foot made contact, he disappeared. And it was captured from 2 different camera angles, so there was no question of a single camera trick or editing illusion. She was terrified immediately after. Her reaction was not the reaction of someone who had planned what just happened. Whether it was an extraordinary coincidence of camera angles, something physics has not yet named, or something far beyond our current understanding, 2 cameras saw the same thing, and neither of them could explain it. You might have heard about disappearances before, but you have probably never seen anything quite like this. It was a busy airport lounge, people moving in every direction, others waiting for their flights, the kind of ordinary chaos that fills every major airport every single day. Everything seemed completely normal until something unexpected happened. A woman was walking through the lounge when, in an instant, she vanished. Her baggage was left behind. She was nowhere to be seen. People around her stood frozen, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Did you notice that about 8 people disappeared from the screen at the same time? On March 18th, a video surfaced online that started as a simple moment between a husband and wife. He was filming her, capturing what seemed like an ordinary memory. But what happened next turned into the most terrifying thing he had ever recorded. As she turned around, her tongue shot out of her mouth, long and fast, like a reptile catching prey. It happened so quickly that it almost seemed like a glitch in reality. But the camera caught it clearly. To everyone's shock, the size of her tongue was almost 10 times larger than any human tongue on record. It was enough to make people believe she was not entirely human. Whether it was a medical anomaly, a trick of the camera, or something that science has not yet categorized, the footage exists, and once you see it, it is not easy to unsee. A couple did not know that strolling on a regular sidewalk could become such a dangerous and life-altering moment. A security camera captured the heart-stopping instant when a car careened completely out of control, the driver apparently having fainted or lost all command of the vehicle. The consequence was a collision that nearly claimed both of their lives in the most terrifying manner imaginable. But the young man's reflexes were something beyond what training or instinct alone could explain. In a fraction of a second, he assessed the situation, positioned himself, and protected his girlfriend from the full force of the impact, pulling her out of the path of the vehicle in one swift motion. The toll on his body was severe. He could not even stand up afterward, despite her attempts to help him. The car crashed violently into a pole nearby, and yet both of them survived. His body absorbed what should have been unsurvivable. That is not ordinary. That is something else entirely. In this story, we meet Dennis O'Connor, an 83-year-old great-grandfather who became famous online because of what he did at a local betting shop. The moment was caught on security cameras. 3 robbers wearing hoods rushed into the shop, holding weapons and threatening the manager. They acted in a scary and aggressive way, trying to make everyone inside do exactly what they wanted. But Dennis did not do what they expected. Without waiting or showing fear, he moved behind the robbers calmly and carefully, then started forcing them to back away. After that, he chased them completely out of the shop and even gave one robber a quick kick as they ran off. Later, in an interview, Dennis said he did not stop to think. He just followed his instincts and wanted to help. People on social media called him incredibly tough. But what Dennis showed that day was more than toughness. At 83 years old, facing 3 armed people, he did not seem afraid. And that lack of fear, that strong confidence in a dangerous moment, is its own kind of superpower. Forget the Marvel superhero Hawkeye, because Lucas Novotny is doing amazing things in real life. Lucas takes horseback archery to a level that makes the movie version seem small. He shoots arrows with great accuracy while racing on a horse at speeds that would make most people struggle just to stay on, much less aim and shoot perfectly. His sharp eyes, super fast reactions, and almost magical connection with his bow make him different from other archers today. Long ago, horseback archers were some of the most feared warriors in the world. Over time, that skill became less common because of new technology and modern fighting. Lucas is bringing it back, not as a costume act from history, but as a real example of what the human body and mind can do with extreme training. Watching him hit moving targets from different directions while riding at full speed leaves little doubt. He may be the best in the world at what he does, and what he does hardly looks human. So there you have it. 20 people who refuse to let the world define what a human being is capable of. What connects all of these people is not necessarily the supernatural. It is the extraordinary. And the extraordinary, as it turns out, is far more common than we give it credit for. It lives in gyms and offices and airports and construction sites and parliament buildings. It walks down city streets and sits quietly in Nepalese monasteries. It rides horses through open fields and stands calmly in front of moving vehicles. Which of these 20 people surprised you the most? Was it Dennis O'Connor, the 83-year-old who felt no fear? Was it the powerful girl who lifted a car with one hand like it was nothing? Let me know. If you found this video fascinating, make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss our next countdown, where we go even deeper into the world of people who seem to operate outside the boundaries of what we call normal. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.
Do you think time travel could really happen? One man turned $800 into $350 million in only 2 weeks. A supposed soldier from 2036, and a man warning that a hidden time authority was already hunting him down. If you believe time travel is only something from movies, then we would really like to know how you can explain these 15 strange stories. Now, let's get started. In early 2003, the Securities and Exchange Commission flagged a 44-year-old investor named Andrew Carlson. In just 2 weeks, he had turned an initial investment of $800 into $350 million. Every single trade he executed was a high-risk venture that yielded maximum returns. All 126 of them. Investigators said the statistical probability of that happening by chance was essentially zero. When the FBI brought him in, they expected a confession about insider trading. What they got instead was something that stopped the room cold. Carlson told them he was a time traveler from the year 2256. He said the stock market crash of 2003 was common historical knowledge in his era, the same way we know about the Great Depression today. He called what he did historical arbitrage. He was not stealing information, was simply using facts that, in his time, were already in the history books. Investigators tried to pull up any record of Andrew Carlson prior to March 2003. But no tax records, no prior addresses, no employment history, no documentation of any kind. It was as if this man had not existed before that date. Carlson offered to reveal the location of his time machine and share a cure for cancer, but only if he was granted full immunity and allowed to return to his own time. Authorities declined. He was formally charged. And then, before he could ever appear before a judge, he disappeared from his prison cell. No explanation was ever given. If you could travel through time, would you prefer to go back to the past or to the future? Why? Share your story.
My trip to the year 3000 was quite a bit different than my trip to the year 8973.
In 2018, a man named William Taylor came forward with a claim that pushed the boundaries even further. He said he had traveled not just decades into the future, but thousands of years. His destination was the year 8973, and he said he got there as part of a classified British intelligence program.
I remember they had abnormally large heads and large eyes as well.
Taylor reportedly passed a lie detector test. What he described about the year 8973 was unlike anything else in the chronological record. He spoke of beings that were no longer purely biological, highly advanced entities with telepathic capabilities that could transmit thoughts directly without language. He described a civilization that had solved mortality, where consciousness was either maintained indefinitely through biological repair or integrated into digital networks. He also made a claim about the present. Taylor stated that time travel technology has existed since 1981, developed by governments using reverse-engineered technology from non-human aircraft. And he said that within the next few years, this technology would be made available to the general public. Between late 2000 and early 2001, a figure posting under the names Time Travel Zero and later John Titor began appearing on online forums. He claimed to be a United States soldier from the year 2036 sent back in time on a specific mission. Titor described his time machine in unusual technical detail. According to him, it used dual microsingularities contained within a magnetic housing mounted in the back of a car. He also described a cesium clock array for temporal synchronization, an electron injection manifold to regulate the singularities, and an X-ray venting system to manage radiation during travel. Supporters argued that these descriptions sounded more like engineering concepts than typical science fiction. His stated mission was to travel to 1975 and retrieve an IBM 5100 portable computer. He claimed the machine contained a little-known capability to emulate and translate between programming languages such as APL and BASIC, which would help solve legacy software problems connected to the real Unix 2038 timestamp overflow issue. Years later, researchers confirmed that the IBM 5100 did contain obscure internal emulation functions not widely known to the public in 2000. His supporters argue that his presence in our timeline created a branch, a parallel reality where those events were avoided. His critics say the predictions are probably impossible. Gerald Gardner described a future that was both utopian and deeply unsettling, which is part of what drew attention to his account. He claimed to have worked for the British government in a classified time travel research program, and said he was paid to travel to the year 2300 using a large spherical device made of rotating interlocking layers. According to Gardner, humanity in 2300 had solved many of its oldest problems. Cities floated roughly 1,800 meters above the ground using anti-gravity technology, while money, banking systems, and warfare had all disappeared. On the surface, the future appeared highly advanced and peaceful, but Gardner also described a darker system beneath it. He claimed society was governed entirely by a single artificial intelligence of immense power. Citizens who violated its rules were not imprisoned physically. Instead, their consciousness was removed from their bodies and transferred into a digital environment. In that state, they remained fully self-aware but had no physical form and no meaningful ability to interact with the world. Gardner referred to it as a perpetual digital prison. Supporters of the story point out that neural interface research, AI governance systems, and theories surrounding digital consciousness are active areas of study today. Gardner's critics argue that his account resembles speculative futurism more than evidence of actual time travel. What do you think about this? David Huggins describes time travel differently from most alleged experiencers. He does not speak about machines, secret programs, or missions. Instead, he claims decades-long interactions with extraterrestrial beings that began when he was 8 years old. According to Huggins, these entities repeatedly took him to other times and places. By age 17, he says he had formed a relationship with a being he called Crescent, and that the relationship produced hybrid children who were neither fully human nor fully alien. For most of his adult life, Huggins has painted these experiences, creating around 150 canvases depicting beings, encounters, and strange environments he insists are as real as ordinary memories. The works are stylistically influenced by Impressionist painters like Renoir and Monet, but focus on deeply unconventional subject matter. The documentary Love and Saucers explored his life and art in detail. What stood out to many viewers was not the extraordinary nature of his claims, but the sincerity with which he described them. Whether his experiences reflect extraterrestrial contact, psychological phenomena, or something else entirely remains unresolved, but his paintings document a consistent personal narrative spanning decades. Do you think David Huggins truly experienced contact with extraterrestrial beings over many years? Let's discuss in the comment section. Mike Markham is one of the few alleged time travelers who claim not only to experience time travel, but to build the machine himself. In 1995, he called into Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell and described a homemade device based on a Jacob's ladder, a high-voltage electrical arc between two electrodes. According to Markham, when the arc reached a certain intensity, it created a vortex capable of displacing objects through time. He claimed he had already sent small objects through the device, watching them disappear and sometimes reappear. Wanting to test it on himself, he needed more power than his home could supply. To solve that problem, Markham stole 6 industrial transformers from the utility company in King City, Missouri, causing a major blackout. He was arrested and jailed. After his release, he called the program again in 1996, saying he was building a second machine using legal components and preparing for a human trial. In 1997, Markham disappeared for nearly 2 decades. He resurfaced in 2015 in poor physical condition, claiming he had entered the vortex and arrived in an Ohio field weeks ahead of when he had left. The Mandela effect refers to large groups of people sharing the same false memory with strong confidence. The term was coined by researcher Fiona Broom after she discovered many people independently remembered Nelson Mandela dying in prison during the 1980s, complete with memories of news coverage and memorials. In reality, Mandela was released in 1990, became president of South Africa, and died in 2013. Broom later documented many similar cases. One of the most famous involves a non-existent 1990s movie called Shazam, supposedly starring comedian Sinbad as a genie. Despite detailed memories of scenes and jokes, no evidence of the film exists, and Sinbad has denied ever making it. Other examples include people remembering the Berenstein Bears as Berenstein Bears, or recalling the Monopoly mascot wearing a monocle, which he never did. Psychologists explain the Mandela effect as confabulation, the brain reconstructing memories imperfectly under the influence of suggestion and social reinforcement. But some connect it to the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics, which proposes that every possible outcome creates branching realities. Under this theory, altered timelines caused by time travel could leave some people retaining memories from a previous version of reality rather than simply remembering incorrectly. On November 23, 1953, Lieutenant Felix Eugene Moncla Jr. and radar operator Robert Wilson took off from Kinross Air Force Base in an F-89C Scorpion jet to intercept an unidentified object detected over Lake Superior. Ground radar stations tracked the event in real time. At approximately 6:55 p.m., radar operators observed Monkla's jet closing in on the target at around 8,000 feet. On the radar screen, the two signals merged into a single blip. Operators expected them to separate once the interception was complete, but instead, the merged signal remained briefly before disappearing entirely. There was no explosion, distress call, debris, oil slick, or wreckage ever recovered. The U.S. Air Force later concluded that Monkla had collided with a Royal Canadian Air Force transport aircraft that had drifted off course. However, the Canadian pilot denied being off course or encountering any interceptor aircraft that night. Analysis of the AN/FPS-3 radar system later revealed an important limitation. Objects within half a mile of each other would appear as a single target regardless of altitude. This means the radar merge indicated proximity, not necessarily a collision. What actually occurred during that encounter remains unknown. UFO researcher Donald Kehoe suggested the aircraft may have encountered some form of spatial anomaly connected to the unidentified object. Neither Monkla nor Wilson was ever found. Could they have traveled to another dimension? What do you think? Let's discuss in the comments section. In January 2018, a woman identifying herself only as Clara claimed she had participated in a classified U.S. military experiment beginning in 2000. According to her account, she was sent to the year 3780 to retrieve an advanced computer chip and return it to the present. Clara described time using a skyscraper analogy that later drew attention because of its similarity to certain interpretations of quantum physics. She said every floor of the building represents a different point in time, all existing simultaneously. In ordinary life, people move through time like passengers in an elevator without access to the controls. She described the year 3780 as a civilization where the boundary between human consciousness and technology had effectively disappeared. According to Clara, biological minds and digital systems had merged into a single form of existence beyond modern terminology. Clara also claimed the technology she retrieved remained classified and that the military program behind it was among the U.S. government's most tightly guarded secrets. No evidence or documentation supporting Clara's story has surfaced, and her identity has never been verified. However, supporters often point to her skyscraper model of time because it resembles the block universe theory discussed in modern physics. In 2014, a man using the pseudonym Dziga Vertov, borrowed from the famous Soviet filmmaker, gave an interview that was recorded and uploaded to YouTube. He claimed to be one of the first alleged time travelers ever documented on camera, though he insisted his story was not about personal adventure. Vertov described an organization he called the Time Authority, which he said monitored the timeline and intervened whenever individuals or groups attempted to change history in ways that could create instability. According to him, the authority had the power to erase people from history, replacing them with biological clones that retained none of the original person's memories. He claimed the authority already knew his location and was actively tracking him. During the interview, he refused to provide physical evidence, saying that producing documents or proof would speed up his capture. His description of the future was bleak. He warned of a collapse of global financial systems, a sharp decline in the world population, and widespread social fragmentation. He said civilization would eventually rebuild, but the society that emerged afterward would be fundamentally different from the modern world. Near the end of the interview, Vertov became visibly distressed, saying he could sense the authority closing in. He abruptly stood up, walked off the set, and has never been publicly identified or located since. Do you think Dziga Vertov was telling the truth about the Time Authority tracking him? Let me know your opinion, and don't forget to check out more interesting content in the top right corner of your screen. In 2006, a man appeared in Kiev behaving strangely. He asked for directions to streets that no longer existed, wore outdated clothing, and carried a Soviet-era ID and a vintage camera with undeveloped film. He identified himself as Sergei Ponomarenko, born in 1932, and claimed he had no idea how he arrived in 2006. His last memory was from 1958, when he photographed a disc-shaped object hovering near a building in Kiev. Authorities examined his documents and found them consistent with Soviet-era materials and formatting. The camera film, once developed, showed black and white photographs of 1950s Kiev, including one of Sergei with his fiancée and another showing the strange object in the background. Investigators later found the woman in the photograph, now elderly. She confirmed Sergei had disappeared in 1958 without explanation. She also produced a photograph allegedly sent from 2050 showing an older Sergei standing before a futuristic Kiev skyline. Before further investigation could continue, Sergei disappeared from the facility where he was being held. Many people debate whether this case is an elaborate hoax or something more bizarre. In 2003, accounts circulating in intelligence and alternative research circles claimed the Romanian Ministry of Defense discovered a hidden chamber beneath the Bucegi Mountains. The story began when a Pentagon satellite using ground-penetrating radar detected an anomalous void beneath the Romanian Sphinx, a rock formation on the Bucegi Plateau resembling the Egyptian Sphinx. According to the claims, the structure's geometry and internal layout appeared too precise to be natural. Romanian and American officials allegedly entered the chamber and found advanced technology unlike anything known in archaeology. Reports describe holographic systems displaying detailed records of Earth's history, including unknown civilizations and events, along with projections of distant planetary systems. Most significant were claims that the chamber contained a functioning portal capable of displacement through space and time. Some researchers alleged it was connected to similar sites in Egypt and Iraq, forming part of an ancient non-human network. If true, the geopolitical response was immediate. Romania's NATO admission was reportedly accelerated, and the Bucegi Plateau became a restricted military zone, which it remains today. In 1979, two English couples traveling near Montélimar in southern France stopped for the night at a small roadside hotel marked only by a sign reading "Hotel." From the moment they entered, everything felt strangely outdated. The furniture was heavy and old-fashioned, the beds were wooden frames with thin mattresses, and there were no telephones anywhere in the building. Other guests wore clothing from what appeared to be a much earlier era and reacted to the couples as though nothing was unusual. The travelers also encountered gendarmes, whose uniforms were later identified by one member of the group, knowledgeable in French history, as identical to pre-1905 French police uniforms. The next morning, the couple paid just 19 francs for lodging and a full meal, a price impossibly low for 1979, but realistic decades earlier. On their return trip, they searched for the hotel again but could not find it. Locals had never heard of it, and the building appeared to have vanished entirely. When the travelers developed their film, every photograph taken inside the hotel was missing, while all other photos remained intact. Researchers of alleged time-slip phenomena consider the case notable because all four witnesses maintained consistent accounts over many years, and none materially changed their story. In 2017, a man known only as Noah became one of the most widely viewed figures in the online time travel community. Appearing on Apex TV with his face hidden and voice altered, he claimed to be from the year 2030. He said he had traveled through a dome-shaped displacement device and taken anti-aging medication that made him appear much younger than his biological age. Noah made several predictions, including that a woman named Lisa would become US president, humans would establish a presence on Mars, and Martin Luther King Jr.'s granddaughter would hold major political office. He also claimed to have passed a lie detector test, and Apex TV presented footage supporting that claim. The videos gained millions of views, and Noah maintained a consistent persona across multiple interviews. In 2019, however, he admitted the story was fabricated. His real name was Jason, a young man who said he created the character after experiencing severe bullying and becoming obsessed with online fame. What complicated the case was his admission. He said the emotional stress during the lie detector test was genuine because he had partially internalized the false narrative as memory. The case raised broader questions about whether lie detectors measure objective truth or simply sincere belief. Alexander Smith appeared in 2018, claiming the CIA had recruited him in 1981 and sent him to the year 2118 as part of a classified experiment. He said he had spent years hiding because the agency was trying to prevent him from revealing what he had seen. As evidence, Smith presented a blurred photograph showing the futuristic cityscape with highly unusual architecture. He claimed the distortion was caused by the physical effects of temporal displacement, which prevented clear imaging during time travel. Digital investigators later identified the image as a composite based on architectural renderings by designer Vincent Calibo, originally created for a television project depicting Paris in 2050. Analysts also examined Smith's unusual future voice, which he said resulted from time travel affecting the human vocal system. Audio experts concluded the effect matched standard post-production modulation. Despite being widely debunked, the case remains notable because it highlights a broader issue in time travel claims. As strange as these stories sound, they all have one thing in common. Every person claimed to have seen something beyond ordinary human experience, whether it was the future, another timeline, advanced civilizations, or technology that should not exist yet. Some of these cases were later exposed as hoaxes. Others remain unexplained even after years of investigation. But together, they continue to raise the same unsettling question: what if time is not as fixed as we believe? Which case do you find most compelling, and which one do you think is the most likely to be genuine? And if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming journeys. We hope you enjoyed this video as much as we enjoyed creating it. See you in the next video.
If you think time travel only exists in movies and that everything must have a logical explanation, then we are truly curious to hear how you would explain these mysterious cases. In the late 1990s, a man calling himself John Teeter appeared on internet forums claiming he was a soldier sent back in time from the year 2036. His mission was specific. He needed to retrieve an old IBM 5100 computer from 1975 because it contained information critical to fighting a devastating virus in the future. For months, Teeter answered detailed questions about future events, parallel realities, and the technical workings of time travel. Then, in 2001, he abruptly closed the forum and disappeared. Some believe he completed his mission and returned home. Others think he was simply a very clever storyteller. Either way, the level of technical detail he provided about the IBM 5100, including features that were not publicly known at the time, has kept this case alive for over 2 decades. In 1937, an Italian-American artist named Umberto Romano painted a mural called Mr. Pinchin and the Settling of Springfield. It depicts a scene from around the year 1630, showing the founding of Springfield, Massachusetts. And there, right in the middle of the painting, is a Native American man holding a small black rectangular object, staring down at it with the exact posture every single one of us uses when we scroll through our phones. The internet lost its mind when this resurfaced. Historians say it is almost certainly a hand mirror, which was one of the most valuable trade goods exchanged between European settlers and indigenous peoples in the 17th century. Others argue it could be an iron blade held flat against the palm, or a small prayer book. But here's the thing. The posture is unmistakable, and the painting was made in 1937, decades before the first smartphone. So either Romano accidentally predicted the future of human body language, or he saw something we are not supposed to know about. Now is the time for today's choice for dear readers. We all know that in Egypt, modest dress has long been the norm for women. Local customs dictate that women must cover from their shoulders to below their knees. For tourists, the requirements are somewhat less strict, but it is still advisable to choose clothing that adheres to these standards. However, we can clearly see in this photo that these women are neither wearing baggy skirts nor covering themselves completely. This leads us to speculate that there may have been a period when this style of dress was also accepted in conservative places like Egypt. Where are you watching this video from? What do you think about the women in the photo? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. In February 2018, a man known only as Noah took a lie detector test on camera. He claimed he was from the year 2030 and made several predictions. He said that time travel would be invented in 2028, the first humans would walk on Mars, and Bitcoin would be used as currency while cash still existed. He also claimed to have a piece of future technology implanted in his wrist. X-rays did confirm that there was indeed a device under his skin, but he refused surgery to remove it. Days after the test, Noah reportedly vanished during a live stream, only to email the channel later saying he had been pulled back to 2030 for questioning before being returned to our era. In 2003, news reports described the arrest of a man named Andrew Carlson for insider trading. According to the Securities and Exchange Commission, Carlson had turned an initial investment of just $800 into a portfolio worth approximately $350 million. Every single trade he made was high risk and based on information he could not possibly have known. Under questioning by the FBI, Carlson confessed that he was actually a time traveler from the year 2256. He claimed his plan had been to make a few small trades, but he got carried away. He even offered the location of Osama bin Laden and a cure for AIDS as proof of his abilities. Shortly after a mysterious benefactor posted $1 million in bail for him, Carlson disappeared on his way to court. No records of him have ever been found before December 2002. Tap the like button to let us know this content is making a difference, and if you're watching on your phone, be sure to press the hype button right below. In the 1950s, a Benedictine monk and respected scientist named Father Pellegrino Ernetti claimed he had helped build a machine called the chronovisor. According to Ernetti, this device could tune into residual electromagnetic and acoustic frequencies left behind by past events and display them as three-dimensional holograms. He claimed his team included the famous Italian physicist Agostino Gemelli and even Wernher von Braun, the rocket scientist who later helped NASA put men on the moon. Ernetti said they had used the chronovisor to witness the crucifixion of Jesus Christ and even watched a performance of a lost Roman play called Thyestes. In 1972, he published a photograph he claimed was Christ on the cross, captured by the device. Investigators quickly identified the image as a mirrored photograph of a wooden sculpture located in a sanctuary in Collevalenza, Italy. Ernetti eventually admitted the photograph was fake, but maintained until his death that the machine itself was real, and that the Vatican had ordered it sealed away because the implications were too dangerous. No blueprints have ever surfaced, no peer-reviewed evidence exists, but the story refuses to die. Do you think the Vatican is really hiding a machine that can view the past? Share your thoughts on the chronovisor in the comments. In July of 1954, a man supposedly arrived at Haneda Airport in Tokyo holding a passport from a country called Taured. When officials told him no such country existed, he pointed at Andorra on a map and insisted his nation had existed for 1,000 years. He was placed in a guarded hotel room overnight, and by morning he had vanished, along with his passport and all his identification. The real story is even stranger. Japanese police records identify a man named John Allen Kuchar Zegras, who entered Japan in 1959 with a fake passport from the state of Tuared, a misspelling of Tuareg. He was a fraudster, was arrested, tried in the Tokyo District Court, sentenced to 1 year in prison, and even attempted suicide in court by hiding glass fragments in his mouth. So the legend of the disappearing man from a non-existent country is based on a real fraud case, but the supernatural ending was completely invented by storytellers decades later. A woman driving at night through Dundee, Michigan with her 5-year-old daughter experienced something she could not explain. Suddenly, everything around her changed. The dark night became bright daylight. People in 19th century clothing walked along the sides of the road. A woman pushing an old-fashioned baby carriage crossed directly in front of her car. The driver slammed on the brakes, certain she was about to hit them. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the scene vanished and the road returned to darkness. Years later, when her daughter was 13, the girl revealed that during those seconds, her mother had physically disappeared from the car, though her voice could still be heard. Taxi, Roulotte et Corrida is a French comedy released in 1958, directed by André Unabel and starring the legendary actor Louis de Funès. The film blends humor, romance, and adventure as it follows a taxi driver and his eccentric passengers through chaotic situations. But hidden inside this classic film is something that should not be there. In one scene, a woman appears to be holding what looks remarkably like a modern mobile phone, an item that would not exist on the consumer market until the late 1970s and would not become truly portable for another 2 decades after that. Skeptics suggest she might be holding an early hearing aid or a small mirror, but the way she holds the object up to her ear and seems to speak into it has convinced many viewers that they are watching a time traveler caught on film. Is that a time traveler caught on film, or just an old-school hearing aid? Cast your vote in the comments section. In the early 1920s, a Swiss-Austrian teacher named Paul Dinock fell into a coma for nearly a year. When he woke up, he claimed his consciousness had traveled forward to the year 3906 and inhabited the body of a man named Andreas Northman. He kept a private diary that he never intended to publish, describing in detail a world with handheld tablets, a global information network resembling the internet, virtual reality experiences, and even the colonization of Mars after a devastating global war in the 23rd century. The diary eventually surfaced in Greece decades after his death. Skeptics point out that science fiction in the 1920s already explored many of these concepts. Believers point out that Dinock described his experience as so real that it changed his life, and he never sought fame or profit from it. Recently, advanced artificial intelligence techniques were used to restore old film footage of Amsterdam from 1931. The restored video brought the bustling streets of the Dutch capital vividly back to life, showing cobblestone roads, traditional architecture, and crowds of pedestrians going about their daily business. But as viewers watched, they noticed something deeply strange. A woman exits a shop, and as she walks, she appears to be holding a small object to her ear, speaking into it just as someone today would speak into a cell phone. Mobile phones would not be invented for several more decades. Some experts believe she may be holding an early hearing aid called an acousticon, which required the user to hold a microphone near the mouth. Others believe she is something far more extraordinary. This piece of evidence is perhaps the oldest on our list. A Greek statue believed to have been carved around 100 years before Christ depicts a seated woman reaching out to touch the top of a flat, rectangular object held open by an attendant. To modern eyes, the object looks unmistakably like a laptop computer, complete with what appear to be 2 small ports on the side that resemble USB connectors. The sculpture is currently on display at the J. Paul Getty Museum in Malibu, California. Most historians identify the object as a shallow wooden box or a wax writing tablet, with the holes being decorative drill marks. But for those who want to believe, this 2,000-year-old artifact is one of the most striking visual anomalies ever discovered. Does this 2,000-year-old statue show a modern laptop with USB ports, or just a wax tablet? Let me know your thoughts down below. A mother once appeared on the Dr. Phil show to share a baffling story about her son, Oren. Shortly after graduating, Oren revealed to his family that he was actually a robot sent back in time from the year 2050. He claimed to be part of a collective intelligence dispatched by higher beings to warn humanity about an impending apocalypse. To spread his message, he said he had created a hip-hop persona designed to attract followers on social media. His mother was openly skeptical and believed her son was using the story as an excuse to avoid getting a job. But Oren maintained his account, and viewers have been left wondering whether he is a confused young man, a clever storyteller, or something stranger. In 2004, a man named Edward worked as a technical support engineer at a secret government laboratory in Los Angeles. One night, he discovered his friend James, a brilliant scientist at the same facility, secretly removing equipment from the building. James eventually confided in Edward that he was building a time machine and needed someone to test it. Motivated by a promise that his citizenship issues would be resolved, Edward agreed. He claims he traveled to the year 5000 and found himself in a post-apocalyptic Los Angeles, completely submerged underwater due to catastrophic climate change. There he met a local leader named Zach, who explained that the polar ice caps had melted, civilization had collapsed, and world leaders had abandoned Earth entirely. When Edward returned to 2004, he brought back a photograph of the flooded city as evidence. Do you believe Edward's photo of a flooded Los Angeles is real evidence from the year 5000? Drop your theories in the comments. In December 1999, Colombian President Andrés Pastrana attended the historic ceremony marking the transfer of the Panama Canal from the United States back to Panama, ending nearly a century of American control over the vital waterway. The event was attended by world leaders and broadcast widely. As cameras panned across the crowd, one figure caught the attention of viewers years later. A person in the audience appears to be holding a flat, rectangular device, lifting it up as if to take a photo or record video. The shape, size, and behavior of the device closely resemble a modern tablet computer. The problem: the first iPad would not be released until 2010, more than a decade after this ceremony took place. Some have suggested it might be an early digital camera, or even a small video recorder of the era. But the resemblance is striking enough that the clip has become one of the most discussed pieces of alleged time travel evidence on the internet. A photograph from 1917 titled "The Last Picnic" shows a group of people gathered in South Fork, Canada. Among them is a man wearing what appears to be a printed t-shirt, sunglasses, and styled hair. He looks like he walked off a beach in Los Angeles in 2015 and accidentally photobombed a 100-year-old picture. The skeptical explanation is that the U.S. Navy began issuing crewneck t-shirts in 1913. Sunglasses existed in the early 20th century, and casual hairstyles were not invented yesterday. But put him next to the other men in the photo wearing three-piece suits and stiff collars, and the contrast is genuinely unsettling. In 1968, an amateur fossil hunter named William Meister was searching for trilobite fossils near Antelope Spring, Utah. He split open a piece of shale and discovered something that should not exist. Pressed into rock, dated between 505 and 590 million years old, was what appeared to be a human shoe print, complete with a crushed trilobite under the heel. Humans did not evolve for hundreds of millions of years after trilobites went extinct. So either humans existed in the Cambrian era, or someone walked back through time wearing a sandal and accidentally stepped on a trilobite. Geological analysis later determined the print was a natural formation called spalling, where rock fractures in oval patterns due to mineral leaching. The edges are too jagged, the pressure ridges are missing, and there is no trackway of other prints nearby. Still, the image is striking enough that it continues to circulate as evidence of either ancient humans or temporal travel. A human shoe print from 500 million years ago, or just a weird natural rock formation. Share your geological theories in the comments. Another Apex TV claimant, Alexander Smith, said he had been part of a secret CIA time travel program and had traveled to the year 2118. As proof, he produced a single blurry photograph of what he said was a futuristic city. Skeptics pointed out he appeared to be wearing a rubber prosthetic mask and an ill-fitting suit. The photograph itself looked like a low-resolution still from a science fiction film. The pattern here is impossible to miss. Every time someone claims to have traveled to the future, the evidence is conveniently degraded by the journey itself. On August 10, 1901, English academics Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain shared an unexplainable encounter while touring the Palace of Versailles. Both visitors reported stepping through a strange portal in time where they suddenly found themselves surrounded by people from the past and a totally unfamiliar physical landscape. While exploring the grounds, Moberly observed a lady waving a pale sheet out of a building window, and Jourdain spotted an ancient, deserted cottage alongside a rusted farming tool. The entire setting felt deeply unnerving, as Moberly noted that the experience resembled a vivid dream. These clues convinced the pair that they had traveled back to the era preceding the French Revolution, during the reign of Marie Antoinette. Do you think these two academics really slipped through a portal into the French Revolution? Drop your thoughts on time portals below. An unusual broadcast from a 1980s television program featuring dancers has ignited intense debates about time travel. The footage reveals a dynamic stage routine with various individuals dancing in the back. As the lens shifts toward the studio audience, it reveals a cheerful crowd applauding. Yet, an unidentified figure in the center appears to hold and operate a smartphone to record the show. Commercial cell phones only emerged during the 1990s, and early models lacked built-in cameras. So how could this person be recording with a mobile phone? Countless viewers argue he might be a time traveler. Should you ever gain the ability to visit the past to watch a beloved musician, would you film it? Tell us below in the comments. What do you think? Out of these 20 photos and stories, which one do you find most convincing? Is there one that you cannot explain away no matter how hard you try? Drop your answer in the comments below, because I genuinely want to know which case has stuck with you the most. And if you have your own time slip story, a moment when reality seemed to glitch around you, share it in the comments. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button because it really does help the channel grow. And subscribe so you do not miss the next investigation. Until next time, keep questioning everything, because reality is stranger than any of us could possibly imagine.
Cars that defy gravity, who teleport out of thin air. Animals frozen in time. And footage so bizarre that even scientists cannot fully explain it. Are we living in a simulated world? These are some of the strangest glitches in the Matrix ever recorded on camera. Surveillance footage from a busy intersection in Jingtai, Hebei Province, China, captured something that should not be possible. A car is driving normally down the road when suddenly, the rear of the vehicle lifts straight up into the air. The front stays on the ground while the back hovers like an invisible hand is pulling it skyward. Then the car comes crashing down like a rag doll. And this was not a one-time event. Another video filmed from an apartment building shows the same phenomenon. One car gets tossed into the air, and then the car behind it follows. It looks exactly like a UFO is abducting them. Now, the first video was eventually debunked. A street sweeper had snagged a thick cable that was lying across the road. As it pulled forward, the cable went taut and caught the undercarriages of passing cars. The camera angle made the cable invisible. But here's the problem. The second video, filmed from a completely different angle, has no visible cable, no street sweeper, and no logical explanation. So which one is it? Coincidence or a crack in the code? Let me know your theory in the comments. In a Phoenix Suns basketball game, something happened that has been viewed millions of times because it looks impossible. The game is going normally. Then, in one single frame, every single player on the Suns starts running at the exact same millisecond. Same stride, same foot, same body angle. Even the referee starts moving at the same time. Scientists who studied this clip point to something called mirror neurons. These are brain cells that fire when athletes train together for thousands of hours, creating subconscious synchronization. But to the naked eye, it looks like someone hit a button on a video game controller, and all 5 characters executed the same animation. Where are you watching this video from? Have you ever experienced such a perfect, bizarre coincidence in your life? Share your story below. A dashcam video from Russia shows one of the most unsettling moments ever recorded. A truck driver is cruising down the road when suddenly he jerks the wheel hard to the right. At first, you cannot tell why. Then, out of absolutely nowhere, a woman materializes in the road. She does not run into frame. She does not walk out from behind anything. She simply appears. Stephen Hawking and many other physicists supported the multiverse theory, which suggests there are infinite parallel universes existing alongside our own. Some theorists believe what we are watching here is a person who accidentally slipped from one universe into another. Skeptics point out that lifted trucks can have blind spots up to 20 feet in front of the bumper, which could hide a pedestrian until the last possible second. But the way she appears is so sudden, so seamless, that even the most rational viewers cannot help but feel a chill. A TikTok video went viral after capturing something that looks completely